All right, people, how are we doing? I think we're here. I think we're live. I'm trying to get the screen the way I usually have it. Welcome to the new THC studio. It doesn't look any different because from that end it isn't, but I have a completely new computer workstation and a nice little desk that does that. It goes up, it goes down. It's more of a standing desk. And I think we're gonna get on YouTube. Let's see. All right, it has happened. We got live on YouTube as well as Zoom. Some people might know, some might not. I've been having a lot of problems with the YouTube portion because the show does get copyright strikes because of the songs that I end the show with, which are parody songs, but it doesn't seem to matter when it comes to the robots. They think it's the original. So because of those copyright strikes, I haven't been able to go live on YouTube. And I don't know what happened, but now it's working. I went a different way. I found a workaround. So now I'm going to be bouncing back between two different things, which is Zoom and YouTube. If you want to actually get on this thing, you got to be on the Zoom stream. So if you go to my Twitter or Facebook or the Plus site, there is a link there. It's the last thing I posted, and it will get you into the show. Might as well get the full cat in the shot, huh? But this is awesome. YouTube has, obviously there's, 60,000 or so subscribers. So to be able to go live on the YouTube side is great because all those people see now live in the top corner, and they just start piling in because if you're watching YouTube already, you might as well be seeing something that's absolutely current. But the whole point is to talk to the listeners, not so much a Q&A, but more get your theories and your local stories and experiences, weird stuff that's happened to you or you've seen, all that good stuff. So let's see. All right. Of course, we are drinking a little drink and smoking a little smoke as well. We got some Teeling whiskey on the table, a birthday gift from a good friend of mine. Thanks, Josh. And my wife rolled a joint because we were out of them because it was just 420, and I think she's pranking me with the size of this thing. This is for one guy. One guy who's going to be talking to people on the internet. I don't know what she's doing to me, but all right. Let's see. We got some attendees. And again, all these people on YouTube, I'd love for you to be able to talk to me, but I don't think you are able to from this side of things. I think you got to get on the Zoom feed. So again, Facebook, Twitter, you can find that link and hop over there and then raise your hand, and I'd love to talk to you. I guess you can text questions in the chat, and I guess I'll talk about them in between callers, but it really is more about the callers. Much more fun. All right. Let's see who we got. Armin. I believe I've talked to Armin before. Armin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. What's happening? This is
hey, how are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, maybe this is your third, maybe fourth.
Yeah, I believe so. Drinking a drink here and smoking a little smoke over here as well. But I missed the last one, so I just wanted to say a belated, Happy New Year to the family.
Yeah.
Beginning of the spring, and the first month is normally where we plant things like ideas or
absolutely
to get the result later. And I just wanted to say hi and just throw in a little bit of oddness I've noticed. I'm sure you've noticed as well that how all these burning of churches are happening same time as the fire sacrifice season, so they say.
Yeah.
And we got the Notre Dame, we got the the one in Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa, which is supposedly the Dome of Rock, or the one that is supposed to burn down before the next phase. And then more in Sri Lanka and all over. And, there's natural disaster going on as well. But it's interesting because it makes me think it's saying, burn down the old religion to get a new religion in. And the new religion, interestingly, may be something related to UFOs, because every year also I follow like UFO things as well, and I see more activities in the same time that all these sacrifices are happening every year. And this year we got even the Navy coming up yesterday saying that they have to have a formal way of reporting about UFOs because there are so many reports they don't even know what to do with it. So it's just so interesting that the fire sacrifice season and the UFO activity seem to sync up.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of people talking about things going on within ufology, especially I just uploaded a show today with a guest who that is kind of the subject, is the corporation that's involved with Skinwalker Ranch and the changing of hands that they had. And,
interesting show, actually. Yeah, I listened to it.
Oh, wow. A lot of THC for you today. But it does seem like there is some shuffling of the deck, like they're kind of getting ready for a setting of the stage, I guess. I mean, Dr. Diana Pasolka's book was published by Oxford Press, I believe. I mean, and that is about the nexus of religion and ufology. And I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. That's
right. On a less academic side, also, we got Kanye doing Easter service at Coachella.
Yes, I did hear about that.
I mean, that's like new religion written all over it.
Indeed. I mean, they've been talking about that for a long time. I'm okay with tearing down the old religions to a degree, but I definitely don't need a replacement.
That's right. Yeah, just wanted to say that, and say thanks for just being who you are. Maybe, keep doing what you do so well.
Thank you, man. Well,
hey, you never came down to DC. I keep finding more cool places to show you. I found the older Templar Masonic temples. So you really got to make some time. And spring and fall are the best. So if you ever come down, hit me up.
I'm down for it, man. But DC is just such a commitment. It's all the way on the other side of this great nation.
Hey, for any of the listeners who are also in the East Coast, I'm having a bonfire at my property on Ahita Farm in May 5th weekend.
Okay.
So, if anybody's interested, just they can get my info from you or just hit me up right now via chat. Okay.
Well, how should that? You want to give your email?
Sure. If they just actually look up Anahita Farm in Maryland, Anahita spells ANH. ITA, Anahita. No, am I saying it right? Anahita, ANAHITA Farm in Maryland. And then they get my website. It's not very updated. I'm just working on it. But they see that May 5th went, and they can register there, and I get an email that way.
Wow. Okay. So you're having a bonfire. THC is invited. I mean, hey guys, people ask about meetups all the time.
Oh, yeah. That totally could be an East Coast meetup. I'm totally open to that. I'm in touch with Michael Wan with the Alchemy, Susquehanna Alchemy. I missed his gathering today, actually. He had his own gathering today. But I'm trying to get him to come down, too.
Excellent. Great dude for sure. I like his Starboard sessions. I got one for my wife for her birthday. She loves it. It really is a mini documentary about yourself, and you get to keep it for the long run. So it's very cool.
Right on.
All right, man. Well, I will cut you loose. Looks like we got some other hands up, but it was good talking to you. You're a staple now.
Sounds good. Yeah. Say my hello to everyone,
All right.
All the lovers of the truth.
All right. Peace, man. Bye. All right. Love that guy. That's been maybe at least half of the joint sessions, I think. Let me see what's going on the YouTube side of things. About 100 people on that side. Comments are kind of coming in so quick. It's tough to see them. A lot of people criticizing my artwork, nothing new there. Call me the John Podesta of podcasting if you got a problem with the artwork. I really am just kind of over it. A conspiracy show, a show that's about paranormal stuff, has to somehow convey that in logos and artwork. That's the way it's going to be. Do you think my symbol should be, unicorns and guitars because that's what the show's about? It just makes no sense. Let's see. Somebody asked if I know what gang stalking is. Yeah. A lot of people are seemingly experiencing that, but some people say it could be paranoia, and I'm sure that's in the mix. But Robert Guffey was the one who really told us a tale about gang stalking, and it was a local tale too. His book Camelio is great. Okay, so people are saying on YouTube they don't hear the caller, and that makes total sense because they're not really connected, because I've lost the ability to, I guess, use third-party streaming within YouTube. It's a very specific restriction, but that's the way it is. So if you cannot hear me, I would suggest hopping over onto Zoom. You can find the link on Facebook or Twitter, and people are going to love hearing me say that constantly throughout the archived video. Someone says it's obvious that I don't look at the chat board. Well, I'm looking at it, and I'm glad you used the opportunity wisely. All right. Well, let's take another call. So YouTube, get ready for a long, long silence, or like I said, hop on over. We're going with the stoned ape because I like that theory. I probably like this man. Stoned ape.
Greg.
What's happening, man?
How you doing, my friend?
Can't complain. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I'm calling. I don't really got nothing specific to talk about today, but I will in the future. So I'm a veteran, and I joined in 2004, shortly after, in large part due to the towers falling down.
Okay.
And I joined for the right reasons. I never thought the things I thought now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just your show and shows like yours, man. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and it's strange because I feel like part of the reason I called you today was because I can't even talk to a lot of my veteran friends, people I consider super close, because it's such a foundational breakdown. I don't know. You know what I mean, though?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could use the cliche phrase of drinking the Kool-Aid. Maybe you once were and you no longer are, but everyone you know is. So it's a little bit of a Twilight Zone situation where you probably feel more isolated because of maybe some more controversial views that you can't share.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I was such a limited person before, everything, I think most people still are, people believe what they're told and believe what their parents believed. And it's just, that's the way it's been for so long. And to find, I'm 32 now, but to finally,
34.
It's been about you're 34?
Mm-hmm. So we're right there.
Yeah. And just how long have you been quote unquote awake before all this woke nonsense came around?
I mean, it is tough to say. I have had distrust in authority for as long as I can remember. I was in a pretty rigid private school, which fueled that fire. And as you grow up, maybe I was looking for reasons to validate my own opinions. But the more you look into authority, you find plenty of abuses. And so instead of shedding that punk rock philosophy, it just kind of emboldened it. And I just ran with it. But 9/11 was one of the first times where I saw that stuff. It became less abstract on 9/11 because,
Right.
We're talking about JFK, all these things that happened before you or I were around, and they're interesting, but it really was that set off everything, because it even set off all the wars. Like, things were relatively calm right before then. So it is pretty wild. That's obviously a huge catalyst, and it's also kind of cliche to say, but that's what our generation has to look at as, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. Things have gotten serious now. It's not just an idea of, fuck the police and that whole kind of attitude. There's a real reason once that happened. And something I like to ask people who were in the military is, did you get any shots you weren't sure what was in them before you, like when you enlisted, before you went overseas? I mean, I know they do malaria shots and that kind of stuff, but I've got friends who, now that they are on the woke side, they've expressed to me, they're like, man, we got a lot of shots and I don't know what the hell was in there. I guess you really do just sign your life away.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. They gave me shots that I don't know what they were. Not to mention, I've tried to go back and like access my records. You would think they keep track of this stuff. It's like jumping through hoops to try to find. I wanted to know like everything I've ever gotten. What have you put in me? Because,
Yeah.
Before I went to Iraq, they were testing the anthrax vaccine, so they gave me the anthrax vaccine. So apparently, I'm supposed to still be immune to anthrax, like, which is just like,
Cheers.
and then, yeah, cheers. So
Wow.
yeah, as far as that stuff, definitely a no go. And the military left me with a real bad taste in my mouth, man. Like, I got a DUI, so I was on my way out the door anyway, and I had a real serious problem with alcohol. I struggled with PTSD. I still struggle, but I'm doing amazingly better. I've been, sorry, I'm ranting a little bit, but I've been away from alcohol for almost 4 years. I've been away from the booze, so that's a big difference for me.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I was in this recovery program while I was still active duty, and I was so bad that I dropped out of the program. And instead of them, seeing that was a serious problem and sending me to like an inpatient treatment program, which is what I was kind of looking for at that time, they separated me. And I mean, I get it, you do your own thing, but they kind of cut me loose, knowing I was a raging alcoholic. It felt like they were setting me up to fail, after I was in for 9 years, and it was just like, yeah. So it was a rude awakening.
I mean, you've barely been here for 30 years, and it's a third of your life. It's unfortunate, people commit to things thinking that the structure they're involved with, whether it's some corporation that you're banking on for the rest of your career or the military, it is unfortunate when you put your trust in something and you're just completely left out to dry. I empathize, man. That is sad.
No worries, man. No worries. I wouldn't be who I was today without all the trials and tribulations. It's how I try to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
I do got some stories, but I've got to get my thoughts in order a little more. But I got some stories that I don't know how you work exactly, but I want to run them past you offline before we talk about them in this forum.
Right on. I mean, this is pretty much no real planning kind of thing. This is just kind of a community hang. But for sure, definitely email me, and maybe we can put a little bit of preparation into telling those stories on this forum. I think that'd be cool. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, and I'm not even looking. We don't need to prep it too much. It's just a couple of things I wanted to make sure it'd be okay to talk about. And
everything's okay to talk about. Everything, honestly, no matter what.
Well, let me just get my thoughts in order then before I take it a little deeper. But I appreciate your time, man, and I will be calling in again.
Awesome, man. Take care.
You as well.
Sweet. Good dude. I do empathize for people who have signed long commitments to the military when they were young. I mean, 9 years ago. The things I was doing 9 years ago, I wouldn't want to be held responsible for today. I'll say that. It's pretty wild. I know people who use the military for all sorts of reasons, from rehab to almost like a male welfare. It's like, when young women fall through the cracks, maybe you have a baby and you get on welfare, and then when a young man falls through the cracks, you sign up to go to war. It's a fucked up system we have, but by having a volunteer military, I think they learned that they can always just kind of press us into desperation, get a certain amount of people to sign up, and then the protesting we experienced with Vietnam and the draft It goes away. It's a different type of person, and we don't have to watch, like, let's say you're in a community of 20 friends who are all anti-war, and now you have to watch on TV a lottery that maybe some of them are going to get sent to Vietnam. What the fuck? But now we send plenty of people to war all the time, and you can stay in your isolated bubbles and you're not affected. And it is sad. It's also gamesmanship from the top, because they want to be able to do whatever they want to do, and this allows them that. All right, let me check that YouTube thread again. And I'm going to tell you, if you go to my Facebook or my Twitter or the Plus site, any of those places, you'll see the link for Zoom. And then you can hop over to the Zoom side, raise your hand, there's a little button, and I can start taking those calls. You can also hear the full thing. You're just watching me sit here and listen to someone. I understand, it's frustrating, but this is the way we do it. And I like that YouTube is at least feeding people over to the software I'm using. Maybe in the future I'll switch it out. I don't know, maybe I can't, but I don't see any way for you to talk through YouTube. So we're keeping it to Zoom. Please hop over there if you'd like to say something. Someone says, who's the lady whose music Only Trust Yourself is played at the end of some shows? Well, every single song that is played at the end of the shows at this point, with the exception of one, which is Corn Mo, which is the song that ended today's show, every one of those songs, I write the lyrics. I write some Weird Al style parody lyrics to a popular song, and then I hire an artist who I pay out of pocket to make these songs for me. And if I like them, we do more. And Lauren Silva is the one who did that particular one. And Trust Yourself is a cover of Justin Bieber's Love Yourself, if you didn't know that. I'm sure there's a ton of Bieber Higher Side Chats crossover fans. I get it. All right. People are apparently skeptical of my telling them to go over to Zoom, and it's quite a simple issue that we're streaming, but the software is not connected. Zoom is not connected to YouTube because they won't let me. The man's trying to keep me down, guys. Surprise, surprise. A conspiracy podcaster bitching about corporate platforms. You knew it was going to happen. It always does. Let's talk to someone else. Glow Wonders. I feel like that's a name I recognize. Glow Wonders, talk to me.
Hello.
Hey.
You hear me okay?
I can. This is not your first time calling, right?
I'm the kid who didn't have a day off for 8.5 months, if you can remember that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I got a day off, though.
Okay, good. I hope it's not today. I mean, you should be relaxing.
No, it was I had a day off 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. The eternity that is 2 weeks ago. And you've been working every day since.
I'm a newspaper boy, 4th generation, so we don't get days off.
Jeez.
You have to hire or train someone to fill in your spot.
But I hear they can be quite profitable, those routes.
I'll be honest with you. I dropped out of high school probably right when you started the show about 6 years ago or so. I forgot when you started it, but they told me I wouldn't make more than $30,000 a year, and I couldn't work at McDonald's. I now make $50,000 a year, and I looked up the statistics. That's like 1% of American high school dropouts.
Yes,
so
man.
I'm a strong believer. You just work your butt off. I mean, you can get where you want to go.
Right. You are doing great with the hand that you ended up with. I appreciate that. I mean, hey, I'm a college dropout, so the statistics aren't that much different for us.
Hey man, you had the cojones to go the next step. I was afraid of college. I said, screw that. I'll throw newspapers.
The first couple of years of college are really just 2 extended grades, especially where I was from. I mean, everybody that I went to college with high school was moving on to college, and a good chunk of the people I knew were moving on to Mizzou. So I was going to Mizzou with like a dozen built-in friends, some I've known since kindergarten, and now we get to live away from home. I mean, there were a lot of reasons that attracted me to it besides education. So I didn't necessarily go for all the right reasons, and that's probably why it didn't last too long.
Yeah, I understand that.
You didn't have the debt.
I've had a lot of cousins go to college, and let's just say they don't get their jobs for their degrees, and they just end up with debt.
That seems to be true with a lot of people I know. I know one person, good friend of mine, love the guy. He went through 4 years of college and continued working at the same job he got when he was 16. We're the same age. He's never worked with a different company, and he went to 4 years of college. I mean, it is what it is. People do that, but sometimes I'm just like, you could have worked through that, and now you wouldn't have 20, 30 grand worth of debt. You got the same job, you didn't get anything different from what you had. So I don't know, interesting choice, but people make them.
No, I would have to say a lot of people go down that route, but that's what we're told from our education growing up. You got to go to school to be successful.
It's true. And I was scared shitless. Of course, when I dropped out of college, I was like really, really worried. And luckily I got into retail management, which at the time, 10 years ago, when I wasn't even, I was, just barely able to drink, and people are letting me run a company. And I just thought, wow, this is kind of fun. And that sheen wore off quite quickly. And then you're like, oh man, now I'm really fucked because I'm stuck in this channel. I'm stuck in this thing where my resume is just retail management. So
we're talking GameStop, right?
It started with Great American Cookie. I'm decorating cookie cakes at the local mall kiosk. Did a few weddings, all that. Moved over to Sunglass Hut. Sold Pradas and Versaces to people who definitely shouldn't have been buying them. And then from there, GameStop.
Now, do you remember Game Crazy?
I do. Game Crazy, Electronics Boutique. I mean, those were the places back in the day before they got swallowed up.
Yep. Well, hey, I wanted to drop two things, and one of them I'll try to make quick, and it's just a summary, but it goes on with everything I've learned from your show, so it should be interesting.
Sure.
And well, I was in Montana about 4 years ago on a road trip, going to see my buddy who moved up there after high school, and he had no friends up there, but he started taking a MMA class. So his instructor took a liking to him, and he would invite him over to his house, and he would barbecue with his family and whatnot. So when I went up there, I got invited over for a barbecue. And this guy lived out in basically a mansion in the middle of nowhere. And up in Montana, it's Billings. It's one of their bigger cities, but Montana, there's not a lot of jobs, not a lot of money. And this guy's an MMA instructor, had this beautiful place. So I asked him, what do you do for a living? And he just bluntly said he worked for DARPA. And I was like, "Whoa, that's interesting." And he kind of lifted an eyebrow. I was like, "Oh, you've heard of DARPA, huh?" Like, "Yes, sir. My grandfather worked for NASA for 25 years."
Wow.
And my step-grandpa, excuse me. But he said, the summary of what I learned from him was, he explained, I believe it was in 2000 or 2001 when he was with DARPA, excuse me, and take a sip of a whiskey with you.
Oh, so,
okay.
Yeah, no worries.
He said they were working on a technology where if a soldier got injured on the battlefield and basically became paraplegic, they were able to inject nanobots into them, and it would fuse the spine back together.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this, they tested this out, and he told me it worked. And the reason he told me this, and is he was at a standoff, meaning he didn't understand why they didn't bring this to the public. Because this is such a radical, obviously, I mean, think how many lives that could technically change.
Mm-hmm.
We can fuse together the human spine with nanobots. I mean, a lot of people's lives would be changed.
Yeah, it's Elysium shit.
Yeah, and so that really bothered him. And he ended up getting out of that and using his retirement stuff to move to Montana, and now he does UFC training. Yeah.
Wow.
But that was my quick one.
I like stuff like that.
So on this road trip cross country 3 weeks, the only podcast we listened to was your show before the Plus site was even a thing. So that gives you an idea. And,
thank you, man. Thank you. That's a long time ago.
Well, you gave me a lot of perspective of how to view things. I've been to Contact in the Desert 5 years in a row, met George Norrie, all the people pretty much there. And the one thing I've learned for you is, so, you know, the political rat game nowadays is so, you know, divided.
Mm-hmm.
It really taught me, it doesn't matter who's in office. They're never going to be really for the little man.
No.
But I have a thing where I will agree with, let's say, someone's policy. Doesn't matter if it's left or right. But I believe you can agree with a policy, but still understand that the general guy in power is never going to be for you or me. And he's probably not going to follow that policy.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But it's a thing I find very interesting because I follow today's politics and I see, well, I'll agree with that or I'll agree with this, but I still have to explain to people, no, I'm not a Trump supporter. No, I'm not a Hillary supporter.
Mm-hmm.
I just like their ideas if it's one or the other. But I have to explain to people, like, I'm a little bit more understanding than you, not to be on a high horse or anything, but it's kind of the idea that politics is just simply meant to divide people. That's all it does. And when you come to an understanding of that, you realize, well, we can agree on different issues, but we all can understand that we have to rely on each other and not the, you know, basically government.
Absolutely. I've been trying to do more shows that are kind of about things like permaculture, and I have an upcoming one called with a doctor whose book is called Conscious Home, Toxic Home, and it's all about the kind of, instead of just the big picture, Monsanto, DuPont, they're screwing us, he gets down into the home and he's like, look, this is your sanctuary. You need to fortify it. You need to make it better. Get X, Y, and Z out of there. Replace them with this. Change your light bulbs. Get better water. Here are some filtration options. And I think there's so many people who will sit there and watch hours and hours of chemtrail videos or documentaries about these criminal corporations, but they won't open up a new tab and search for health promoting light bulbs or EMF shielders and just pick some stuff up. Because if you really think this is damaging and this isn't just fear porn, then you need to react. You got to react. And so I think maybe they're not as exciting. Right on. I mean, I'm sorry to, this is really your form to talk, but I just want people to, maybe it's not as exciting, it doesn't get you on the edge of your seat, but
no, that's
we need
the
to
thing.
Pivot towards solutions.
So I have a cell tower on my property about 1/10 of a mile from my house. We got roughly 6 years ago.
Mm.
My whole family sleep pattern's gone to shit. Excuse my French. And I'm following up with just the shows, and I always forget that lady's name, but she was at Contact in the Desert one year. She's the Sarah the Small Storm lady.
Sophia Smallstorm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was at Contact one year, but to the point, she explains pretty good about that EMF radiation and what's coming from the cell towers. And I can tell you firsthand, I mean, I got bumps all over my chest, man, and it wasn't there before. But I just don't pay attention to them. And I'm a strong believer that it's generally coming from that. And just where I live, it's a wine country, up in the Napa Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And with we are the largest Roundup using county in the next 3 counties around me from all the grapes. So can't get away from the Roundup. I drive every night through. It looks like someone's lighting a fire and it's just smoke in the streets and it's them spraying the vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
And you live in a toxic environment over here, and it's kind of it's a nice and no crime, it's a nice area, but sorry for the motorcycle.
That happens.
But you really got to pick your cards, and it'll be not easier, but healthier to move to like the Eastern Sierras over there in Bishop, California.
Mm-hmm.
It's less toxic, but then there's no jobs. It's
Yes.
You pick your poison, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I mean, you can go out to isolation, but then, like you say, there's no infrastructure for jobs or any way to really support yourself except for doing that on the land stuff that is so difficult to do now that it's all been kind of trained out of us. But
Yep.
I hear you. I was just reading an article not long ago about glyphosate and the testing they did on 10 random beers across the country, and not even major brands. Some of them were national, but there were definitely a couple small guys that I like, some that were in San Diego, and every single one of the 10 had glyphosate in it.
Let's just say one of them started with an L.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It really sucks. It really sucks. And then I also saw something else not long ago that was the same kind of study, but they were looking at just breakfast cereals. Breakfast cereals we all know and have all probably had.
One I just had before you picked up the phone for me.
Hey, I had Kix for dinner. Kix and raisins.
My man.
But yeah, it's a little nuts that one insect pesticide, I guess we could call it, it's also labeled an antibiotic. And originally, I just learned this the other day. I probably heard it before and forgot. But initially, it was made to remove rust from metal. And the company noticed that it was killing every living plant that it touched. And they're like, oh, wait, we have a weed killer, actually, is what we have. And that is why they bought it, why Monsanto bought it.
Sorry, yeah, you're right. It was designed as an industrial boiler cleaner for excess metal that would get basically accumulated in industrial boilers. And so it is a metal disassociator. And what do we know we need to keep in us? We need to keep metals. What metal did we learn that we don't keep in our body from the show, 2-3 weeks ago? We don't keep aluminum. It disassociates all the good stuff and it only leaves the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I'm going to let you go because I know there's other callers. Last question.
Yes.
And it's just have you heard, and maybe quick opinion, Dr. Joe Wallet.
I have heard him. I think I saw him at Contact in the Desert, actually.
I'm sure you did. I think we were there the same time. I didn't realize you were going.
I keep a low profile at stuff like that.
Keep it up. You stay low, bro.
For sure. I loved his presentation. It was definitely something he's done 1,000 times before. So he had his routine, and he's a very bold talker, and he's funny, and I liked all that. But then when it pivoted to the only solution for you is my line of supplements.
Yeah.
That's when it turned for me. It soured me. And I mean, why should it though? Because if a guy really is going to be obsessed with this enough to know everything that's going wrong with us, I mean, it's complex material. You would think he'd want to find a solution. So it's just a weird, you can't win kind of situation. But the way it's presented on like Coast to Coast, or I think Alex Jones was promoting it, or maybe it was Jimmy Church. But
both of them at one time were. It's set up like a pyramid scheme. And if you look at it, that's what you'll see. Okay,
I didn't realize there was the "you're now a salesman" aspect of his supplement company, but obviously that's pretty bad. I got sucked in once to Quick Star when I was really desperate for possible solutions.
Boom. Well, hey, I'll let you go, brother. It was good talking, and cheers to you. And remember, take the lady out to Ballarat, California, and tell Rocky the Paperboy sent you.
All right, will do, man.
Hey, good talking.
Peace.
Bye.
And take a day off work. 2 weeks, Jesus. All right, so I'm watching all these people on the YouTube side of things who are popping in and they're like, I can't hear the caller. And so to avoid doing this, I'm just going to type something out real quick and put the link in the chat. I really should have done that before. I got my standing desk now, so it's like a whole process, but let's see. I didn't want to do this while someone was talking. I felt like that was rude, but then just the absolute silence is also weird. But I'm one of those people who can't type and speak at the same time. Bam. All right, YouTube, just for you, I stood up and allowed dead air to exist for a little minute. And I know that you can't hear the callers. There's the link. Don't let me down. I see both these things, and I can see how many people are funneling over. There's the link. And you get over on this side on Zoom, and you raise your hand, and I call on you. We've all been through this before. All right, let's call someone else here. Karab. Is it Karab?
It's Carib, yeah.
Carib. Carrob.
Yeah.
I know we've talked, but
Yeah,
I don't usually see it in text, and so I'm always like, Carab. All right. Hey, how are you?
I know. I'm good. I'm doing great. I was midway through the Matt Landman podcast, and then he walked in my door. And he was like, shut it off. I never listen to myself.
That's funny. Wow. Hopefully he was, hopefully you expected him.
Well,
Otherwise,
he kind of shows up. Well, this is kind of like one of his little homes he comes to. He travels a lot. I think he was in Sacramento yesterday for the big vaccine rally they had, or they lobbied, I guess, yesterday. But the bill passed anyway, so
Right.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yes, isn't that amazing? I mean, I watched footage. This fella Austin Bennett was walking around. He ran for senator against Richard Pan, and he was walking around, and he just was walking through hallway after hallway, and there were just parents and children, just every single hallway. Everyone was sweating, and people were like standing on both sides. There's a little alleyway. It was crazy, and I'm just kind of reeling with the shock of it all.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thousands of people showed up. I mean, it's ridiculous that it was a 6-2 vote.
Well, I just am of the opinion bills do not pass based on how many people are in the street protesting, unless these people don't, like the actual politicians for some reason, don't feel safe if it gets to that level. Otherwise, they're just taking the money, they're cutting and running. And they really don't care how many people are protesting. I got sucked into the Occupy thing. I was a little younger, and I was just all excited about, wow, finally the target is on the rich people making the rules. Well, I've never seen this. And sure enough, it was nothing. I was like, oh my God, this is what's going to be talked about in the future. Like we hear about our parents talking about 60s marches and stuff. And it's like, no, Occupy was nothing. It was almost nothing. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's when
once it got cold, it was over. Once it got cold, it was over.
Well, really, it's just once they sent the cops in, because you have this park where everybody's at, and they got the lending libraries, they're doing this community eating and all this community garden stuff. And they were the elite were just watching to see what happens. Like, oh, it'll end, it'll fizzle, and it didn't. And so, like, okay, well, just send the cops in, tear the tents down, throw the books in the van, tell these people to get the fuck out of here. And sure enough, when they decided to flex the muscle, it was over quite quickly.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Yeah, I mean the rainbow gatherings they used to have, in the national forest land, those can't happen anymore as large as they used to. I'm surprised they let Burning Man go on actually. And they'll probably start messing with it too. They don't want us gathering in large groups.
Well, there's a lot of the Silicon Valley folks who like Burning Man. It's, their little experiment. So I don't know. I think it is weird that Burning Man is a household name. Like Rainbow Gathering definitely isn't, but Burning Man's something else. There's a lot of money and interesting folks behind the scenes in Burning Man. That's my impression. I'd like to go one time, but I'm kind of over the desert camping thing at this point.
I fully agree. Fully agree with the over the desert camping. I like Vegas, but I stay in air conditioning mostly.
Or house cats. What can we do? This is who we are.
I know, exactly. So, so it's just rather random. I mean, it's coming from both coastlines, usually if California and New York, when ideas go through and, they tend to go through on both coasts at the same time, all the mandatory anyone over 6 months old thing they tried to do in those boroughs in Brooklyn, just at the same time the pan thing's going on. It's the trickle down effect. I had a friend of mine in Colorado that's like, dude, what are all these Californians, communist Californians coming here and making laws happen in Colorado? And I'm like, it's the filter in. It's what always happens. It starts on the coasts and moves inland, and being, growing up in Nebraska and you being in Missouri, we get it a lot later, but it comes. It does come.
Absolutely. They're definitely targeting the outer edges first. I mean, that is where 2/3 of the people live, and then it does filter inward. But I got into it with quite a few people about the vaccines thing and the outbreak in New York area and the measles outbreak. And it's like people were calling it a pandemic, an emergency, all the dramatic words you can think of. And the reality is no one is dying from measles. Our parents' generation used to call it just a week off school. You get better, and the idea that we should let a corporation inject us with something they do not disclose what's inside, except that the adjuvants also contain aluminum. Like, I'll take my chances with the measles. It's not a tragedy. So the vaccine issue is obviously a big one. Activism is important. It's frustrating that no matter how much energy you put into it, especially when half the culture would make fun of you for really sticking up for them and their ability to choose what a corporation can do to your body, they'll mock you. And it's just, you got to be pretty strong-willed at this point to spend a lot of time on the ground doing real-world activism. It's got to be done, but it's tough. Matt Landman is great at it, for sure. I think I lost the caller. I think her internet wasn't great. Okay, I think she dropped. So we'll just call someone else here. All right. So it does look like a lot more of the YouTube people have wisened up, hopped over to Zoom, and hopefully have their hand up. I do see a lot of hands that I'm not familiar with. Let's talk to Colt. Colt.
Can you hear me?
I can. What's happening, Colt, man?
I am so stoked to talk to you. I've been listening to you for years. You're absolutely my favorite. It's been life-changing. Like, James Fetzer totally changed my life. Like,
going right in the deep end with Jim Fetzer.
I've got way too much to talk about. I don't want to waste your time, so you ask me the questions.
Well, you mentioned Jim Fetzer. What about that show was so exciting to you? Obviously, he wrote a book that I think has one of the craziest titles ever. I believe it's the moon landing, the Holocaust, and other hoaxes. It's like, whoa, buddy, whoa.
Yeah, so I was listening to you. I was like mowing my yard and shit. And when you brought up the Holocaust, I was like, okay, that's bad enough for me. Mm-hmm. But I kept mowing the yard. The next day I went to work. I got me and my buddies, and we started researching the whole, yada, yada, 6 million thing. We're like, blew that thing out of the water. And after that, like, yada, yada. So ask me another question.
Well, as does sometimes happen with THC, I'll do a show and then people will write me and they say, hey, I love the show. I know you're asking questions. It's good to do. But when it comes to X, Y, or Z, let me enlighten you. And when it came to the Holocaust episode, obviously I got a lot of that kind of thing. And, part of Jim Fetzer's position is he brings up the soccer team picture. Like Auschwitz had a soccer team. And so the premise is maybe Auschwitz wasn't so bad. And somebody like enlightened me to the fact that, well, obviously they want it to look like it's not a death camp. So they're doing PR for their camps. And now that PR gets out there as, look at this. It's still affecting us basically as a culture. I don't know. I think there's some interesting stuff about the Holocaust. It's true that a lot of people who have written books like Night by Elie Wiesel, they come out later and say, yeah, a lot of that wasn't true, or they get caught in a lie. But they were definitely work camps, and, I don't want to go to any work camps. I'm glad they're not. If I was going to go to one, I'd be glad it wasn't a death camp specifically, but I don't know that it's much better. I'm compelled by it's interesting. But where are you on that now? I mean, we're in it. We're in the deepest end of the pool. We're in quite deep water, sir. Colt, what do you think about the Holocaust now? On the scale of 1 to 10, how much of it is a lie? The whole thing? You think the script is completely flipped?
Well, let me take this, dude, because I do this on a daily basis. I live here in Utah, and this is like Mormon capital. And so, people come into my office like, oh my God, did you hear what Q said? Oh my God, did you hear what Trump did? Oh my God, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I have. And let's talk about Pizzagate, and let's talk about how America rounded, when the Nazis were out rounding up the Jews, America was up rounding up every flippin' Asian they could find. Yep. They were sticking them out in work camps out here in Utah. I mean, I can even go deeper. And then when people start listening to me, they're like, oh, you don't think we went to the moon or anything? I'm like, dude, Elizabeth Smart's a freaking liar, dude. Elizabeth Smart's a total liar. I could take this to the whole next level, but then you got the LDS Church. And have you heard of Kevin Arnett?
Yeah, I've interviewed him a couple times, I think. I love Kevin Arnett. He talks about the Canadian orphanage that got caught doing all kinds of fucked up stuff to kids. It was like a Catholic feeder orphanage, a pipeline, if you will. And that's the guy you're talking about, right?
No, absolutely. Damn it, I can't believe I missed this episode. But
early stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying nothing about, I'm just saying that I think the guy's right online. He's even talking about some more stuff. But it's so interesting how we're all pushed into the deepest corners of the internet. We're all made to think that we're crazy. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And this is why I love James Fetzer, because he even said the other day, he's all, you put 19 PhDs together, they're going to definitely blow off the doors of Sandy Hook. They're going to definitely blow off the doors of New Zealand. They're going to blow off the doors of Boston. They're going to blow off the doors of Notre Dame. I mean, they're killing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't heard Fetzer in a while, but I do like his boldness as well. I mean, it's just the way it is. Kevin Arnett, the issue with him is just that he talks with such certainty about these court cases. Like, oh, we're taking them to court, and it's happening. And we're putting these pedophile priests in prison. We're going for the Pope.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, man, I've been doing this show for 8 years.
Well, you know how y'all gotta take it with a grain of salt. You meet all sorts of walks of life and everything. I mean, we can even talk about Lavoy Finnegan with the Burns Oregon situation. Like when I went to the
I
funeral.
don't know what that is.
Well, Lavoy Finnegan was the guy that was shot in Oregon by the FBI. Remember that whole standoff thing in Oregon?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so I went to the funeral, and his 9th daughter started laughing like while she was talking, and he had 11 kids. And so it's like, holy shit, this whole gematria thing will fuck your brain, because if you're worried, if you're at a funeral and you hear the 9th daughter start laughing at her dad and they have 11 kids, it was like, we're back to 9/11. It's like, oh, good Lord. Because you know what I'm talking about, the whole Oregon standoff thing, the Uranium One and Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Yeah.
Uranium One being the deal where when she was Secretary of State, she made a deal with the Russians. She basically sold our uranium production to them, and they now own the facility. Is it in America, in Utah, that's making the uranium?
I'm not quite sure where they're making that at, but that standoff, there was a Masonic cave, and they were talking about like giants and shit in this cave. It's like,
that I don't know about. Can you give us some more context for that?
Holy hell. So I can, you know, Professor Doom, and I know he's in jail now, but he was breaking it down. And then I can't remember the other guy that served a lot of time in prison for doing the whole Burns thing. But the Burns thing was a really big deal. And so where the right-wing standoff was at, there was this Masonic cave there. And inside the cave, there was water, and people had dove down in there. And there was just these legends about bringing up big bones. And you know, that's all I can really say.
Fair.
You know. But, you know, we haven't even talked about UFOs and Skinwalker Ranch because I fucking live here, man.
Yes, I was going to say, have you heard the new episode?
Yeah, dude. I just barely listened to it, and all of a sudden I fell into you again.
Yes, man. What a day for you to be calling, because we did just get deep about that weird hot spot that is rural Utah. Have you been out near the Skinwalker Ranch? Have you tried to get close? Have you seen anything in the night sky?
Oh, dude, I've got at least 24 UFO experiences. And then the really cool thing about Skinwalker Ranch is there's dinosaur bones everywhere. That place is so much fun, and you can camp anywhere. There's all this BLM land, so you don't have to worry about bed and breakfast or anything. You just pull over, camp, grab some pizzas, yada, yada, get some weak-ass beer. Don't bring weed because this is Utah. But, you know, I mean, it's...
I'll take some chances.
Yeah. But, like, I mean, ask me a question. I'll tell you no lie.
Tell us about the craziest thing you've seen out there. You've got over 20 experiences. I'm sure some are just blips in the sky that are like, whoa, that was cool. But have you seen anything more, not so much a craft or a light in the sky, but a humanoid figure? Have you seen a skinwalker? Have you seen, what's the craziest thing you've seen out there in the paranormal space?
I'll start you off the most believable. The most believable, my wife and I were at Lake Powell, which is a hot spot. We were kicking back, you know, drinking a little drink, smoking a little smoke. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, there's a storm cloud off to the south. We're like, oh, there's a storm off to the south. And we see this orb just booking out of the storm cloud. I mean, it just screams right over the deck. Like, I'm a pilot, and I'm like, oh, my God, that's not very high off the deck. Like, if that would have been an airplane, it would have been like a roaring, but it wasn't. And me and my wife, like, we saw that. And I've seen many other things, you know, with other people. So it's not like I'm just some weirdo out in the desert.
Well, let me ask you this. As a pilot, would you say is it fair to say that most pilots have seen something strange and just know that they're better off not talking about it?
I would absolutely agree. But I will say if people spend more time looking at the sky, they're going to see something. Like, I mean, I talked to a ton of people, and they're always like, I can't believe you've seen all that shit. And it's like, dude, if you'd spend more time outside looking at the sky, you're going to see it. I mean, I have seen stuff off my back deck, but I am here in Utah, so this is a really weird place.
Well, okay, we got the most believable thing you've seen. What's the most unbelievable thing you've seen?
Okay, the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. This is the Uinta Basin. I was 12 miles in the backcountry, and we were sleeping in this yurt. And anyhow, you know,
Yurting it up.
Yeah, so I was out in the middle of nowhere. Well, I have this dream of these deer like surrounding me. Like for some reason, I'm outside of the yurt in the snow, and there's these deer surrounding me. And I'm like, this is really interesting. And all of a sudden, like, I noticed they all have almond eyes. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this isn't a UFO. This is like something that, you know, so I pull out my gun and I blast the deer. And the deer just looks at me and he's like, why would you do that? You know, and then I wake up in the morning, not in the morning, I woke up because it was so traumatic. I was like, what the fuck, you know? And there was something knocking on the bottom of the yurt. Well, this disturbed me so bad, I researched a UFO abductee psychiatrist, and I called her up, made an appointment. She just talked to me immediately on the phone. She's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens out there. Do you want to come to a UFO support group? And I'm like, fuck no. I mean, it was so traumatic. Like, I don't ever want to be contacted again. Like,
really?
I'm not interested. I like, leave me alone. I know they exist. I've seen pictures of them. I don't want anything to do with them.
Once you've got the message, hang up the phone.
10-4.
Wow. That's interesting for sure. And with over 20 plus sightings, you've definitely had confirmations. I know there was a time I was like a year ago on vacation with some friends, and, you know, you're on vacation, people are drinking all night, and a lot of us had gone to bed, but two of the guys were out till definitely way into the wee hours of the morning. And they both said they saw a UFO, and they're very convincing. They both were like, I'm not the only one who saw it. He also saw it. And then we did just get to talking about, when was the last time you had a night where you spent it all night till sunrise, sitting outside looking up? You know, when was the last time? Conveniently, the first time you've done it in 6-7 years, you saw something. So, I mean, that's just an example I have from personal experience and personal life that, yeah, it does seem like it's not as hard. It's not as rare as we might think. We just are never doing it.
Some are subtle. I mean, you've seen them. Like, I remember you said you fell asleep in a van after a good old night. Mm-hmm. You shot off the coast of California, at least you thought you did. And I bet you did. I mean, the thing is I think there's so much out there that we're constantly under psionic attack or psychic attack. I mean, I apologize. I do listen to Secure Team, but I completely agreed with him this morning when he said, you know, we only explored 10% of the ocean. And I actually think that actually coming out of the ocean. And I mean, I'm a total weirdo. I mean, Christ knows what's coming over the ice barrier. Not that I believe in that entirely, but you know what I'm saying? We have no idea, like, really what we're on.
Right. Well, hey, let me tell you, little inside scoop, but I've wanted to interview Dr. Gerald Pollack for a long time, the guy who wrote the book Fourth Phase of Water. And we got him. I recorded it just the other day. And in the second hour, the conversation went away from water, and I got him out of the lane of just like giving the same answers he's given to the same questions that he gets interviewed about. And he brought it to UFOs, and he brought it to the fact that, you know, if the fourth phase of water, this easy water, really does separate its charge and push the positive charge out into bulk water and maintain the negative charge, this is energy. And he's shown that just like kids do with a potato in grade school science class, you can stick a wire in the positive and a wire in the negative, and it lights a light bulb, just water. And it's sunlight that does that. Now, how many times have people reported UFOs that are sucking up water from a lake and then jetting off, or coming out of the water or going in? You know, USOs became its own term because so many of them are involved with water. Well, he started speculating about that, and that water, especially water that's out in sunlight, is a battery itself. And if you get into these more natural sciences, this Tesla, Victor Schauberger, Schumann-Engineer, ether physics kind of shit, like the whole joke is that UFOs really aren't that hard to make. They're quite natural and they work quite well, and they've just been suppressed, and it's not as hard as you might think. I'm intrigued by that idea, and the fact that he started talking about that, I mean, I can't wait to release that, because I really do think people are going to be like, holy shit, never heard this guy talk like this before. And he's a freaking professor in Portland.
Yeah.
Or Seattle, I mean. But yeah, wild.
Yeah, that's what I love about your show is you put so much out there, and like I'll share it with all my friends, and they'll be like, Scott, do you really believe that? I'm like, well, what do you think? I mean, some of these people fail thoroughly. Like this the thing that's so amazing. You'll give people so much room to hang themselves. I'm not talking about your next guest. I'm not talking about him at all. I'm just saying that you'll give people so much room to hang themselves. It's like after they're done with it, you're like, okay, I'm done with that theory. But other than that, I mean, like I said, Fetzer changed my life. Even Sophia Smallstorm, I mean, she's been marginalized. She's given some lectures in other areas that have been earth-shaking.
It's true. She can be quite intense.
But she can also be kind of, I mean, I love her. I'd love to give her a hug. She's like my mom, but,
yes.
Yada, yada.
Yeah, she is really nice. I've gone to dinner with her. I've gone to meet her at the farmer's market where she's selling her EMF sleeves for your cell phone. And she is so sweet. And she's very hard on me about all my bad habits. And, she's vegan. Yep. We're sitting down. I'm ordering a drink. I
want to interrupt you real quick, and I really apologize. I just want to give someone else a chance. But I've got to say, remember, James Fetzer right now is in court, and he's arguing Sandy Hook. So
really?
If you're interested, yeah, and he's winning. So as far as like
he's in court. What is he in court right for?
Battling. Well, because Lenny Posner, one of the children, one of the fathers of one of the children who supposedly died at Sandy Hook,
is suing Fetzer.
Is suing Fetzer. Remember Wolfgang Halbach?
God.
And Fetzer's slaying it. He's slaying it in court. Because he is now, James Fetzer has proved that the state has falsified death certificates and passports, which is like,
oh my God,
it's like an explosion. So
I did not know. I can't believe I didn't know.
Well, yeah, that's what you got. That's why you have an army behind you, man, and we'll square you up. But like, wow. You've been the best. I love you so much. I don't have any more information unless you have any more questions. I'm sure I have more information, but you have to ask me a question because I don't have time.
No, man, it's all good. I'm really interested to go dig into Fetzer doing this trial. I mean, it is scary. It is scary that, you talk about this perspective and you could be sued. I mean, I think they probably just took a shot, and it's interesting that he is killing it. Someone on YouTube is asking who's suing Fetzer. It's Lenny Posner. They can't hear the caller on YouTube, but they stay there anyway. I don't get it.
You see, Alex Jones has taken the fall. They're using Alex Jones to prove a false flag. Alex Jones is a total charlatan, and Fetzer's even been talking to me. He's like, dude, I try to help Alex Jones, but he's just taking the fall because he's a propaganda man, and Fetzer, dude, he's a slayer.
Well, that's great to hear. But I can't wait to check it out, man. Is he making daily videos or anything about the ongoing process? Can you see the court proceedings? It seems like you can if he's killing it.
Well, no, you should be. It's all public. I mean, but I'm not no shill for like Fetzer, for Christ's sake.
It's
obviously. Cool. But JamesFetzer.org, like you can read it all about it, just up there with Secret Son, not to be a shill or nothing, because I'm not. Obviously, you can't shill for those two.
Yeah, well.
I can't be a shill for you either, man. I freaking love you.
Hey, it's no big deal. You can support people you like, and it's okay to be excited. I know Jim is a bold guy, so I'm sure he's holding his own, but I'm going to check that out for sure. It's important. I mean,
and then David Cole. Don't forget David Cole, dude. That guy knocked the door off the hinges, too.
David Cole. All right. I'm going to write it down. I don't know that name either.
He's the one that exposed that there was no gas chambers at Auschwitz.
Hello. Okay. Wow.
I think I'm the only person that can talk to you about Elizabeth Smart, but let's save that for another time.
All right, man. Well, hey, it was nice talking to you. Thanks for all the kind words. Take care.
Congratulations on getting married.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
Peace.
Take care. I like that guy. High energy man right there. All right. Let's grab another one. Someone asked about Wolfgang and that situation. I believe they dropped the case with Wolfgang. That's the last I heard. If there's a new case or they resurrected it, that can happen. It might be old news, but that is my understanding. But they went after Fetzer. And that's scary. I mean, Wolfgang and Jim Fetzer were sued for talking about Sandy Hook. I mean, Sophia Smallstorm, yeah, she had a huge presentation and presence with that perspective. She isn't getting sued, but I'm just a degree away from that shit too. Just a degree away. Like, scary. Dust Crane. That's definitely a new name. Dust Crane. What do you got for me?
Hey, how's it going?
Better every day. How are you?
Good. Thank you. You can hear me just fine?
I can, man. Great sound and audio.
Okay.
What's happening?
Good deals. Not much, man. Just listening to the podcast. Got a few things on my mind that I could talk to you about.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had a lot of personal experiences. I actually called in one time before and left a little message that you played before an episode.
Yes. Back in the day, I used to play those messages. That was fun.
Yeah, it was about the blue moon. It was in 2011. I could recap that real quick. It was the night before the blue moon and I was out there smoking a little smoke, drinking a little drink, and I saw the full moon, and I was looking at it, thinking deep thoughts and all this kind of stuff. And next thing you know, a rainbow appeared around it, and it was a circular rainbow, and that wasn't so that was pretty cool. But the next thing, it turned into a hexagon. And after that, and seeing that for a little while and being overwhelmed and like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful and so awesome. I then looked to my left and saw a plane, and the plane was going in the sky. And in my vision, it was about maybe less than a half inch big. And so I'm watching it go by and feeling real peaceful, the main thing that I was feeling though, and I find it kind of odd that none of your listeners ever really say this or talk about it, at least in my knowledge, is this feeling of fate, this feeling of this is meant to be. And so I see this plane, and then off in the distance, kind of right by it, I see this transparent triangle, and it's flying right by it, and then it kind of stops for a second, and then it just zooms off. Yeah, pretty wild experience. Didn't have any epiphany or revelation or anything like that. It was just the same thoughts that I usually think when I'm having those kind of experiences, which is that we're all one, we're all connected to the same source. Which is another thing that I find odd, that a lot of these metaphysical people or people are into the occult or alternative ideas don't really bring up enough, is that we all are connected to that same source, whatever it may be, whether it's good, bad, everything all in one, we're all still connected to it. Yeah. So,
well, you mentioned the destiny aspect, not to cut you off, but
yeah, no worries.
I definitely think that there's a good grip of people who, when they see something, they do feel like at that moment they were compelled to look that way. Like they probably were walking in one direction and they were just compelled to look over their shoulder and do a 180, and then bam, UFO thing in the sky.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that before, but it is definitely not something that's necessarily highlighted. But when you hear that enough times, it's like, yeah, there's some kind of consciousness component to this for sure.
Absolutely. And I had another experience when I was young. The first experience I'd ever had was I woke up out of sleep, which is a lot of these experiences happen this way, connected to the whole DMT thing, I woke up out of sleep. I was in preschool, and I saw at the foot of my bed an all blue being, with red eyes. You couldn't make out any facial features, any kind of arms or legs or anything like that. It was just an energetic being that was all blue and it had red circular eyes. Yeah, very odd. And I've looked on the internet for other people with similar experiences or drawings, imagery, and it's very rare. It's very rare to find anything like that. It scared me so bad when I was a kid, I just pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep. Yeah. Had another experience like that in the 4th grade, completely different though. I woke up from a fever. I was sick at the time, and woke up and saw what I thought was my grandmother in my doorway, just checking on me. And the second time I said grandma, it made this horrible face and just mangled looking, burnt looking woman type of thing. Yeah.
All right.
And, pulled the covers over my head, same thing. But this time I didn't go back to sleep. I was able to take the covers off, and it wasn't there. And I went into my grandmother's room and, checked on her. So I was like, Grandma, were you checking on me or anything like that? And, this was in the 4th grade, and man, I was scared out of my wits, but yeah, I've had some pretty weird experiences in my life. And all that has also led me to the band Tool, which was one of the first bands that really got me into exploring these ideas and the metaphysics and the alternative, which isn't ever brought up by any of these people. I'm like, how can these people be into the metaphysics and the alternative ideas and the occult and not know or talk about the band Tool?
I hear you, man. They're definitely esoteric. I was never a huge Tool fan because I was more in the punk rock stuff, and the whole emo thing was going on at the time. And I had buddies who liked Tool, but they also liked ICP, so I did not trust their judgment. Although I did think the art was deep, and they just weren't. Those friends happened to not be the deepest of my friends, and so I was not necessarily compelled to be like, oh, I love your life philosophy, and you always have such interesting things to say. Where do you get it? Oh, you get it from Tool? Well, let me check out Tool. Although, I like the classics. Schism's a great song.
Absolutely. And from face value, Tool does come off kind of like it's very easy for people who are into that angsty, angry, dark kind of thing. They could love it. They could really get into it. But that's the awesome thing about that band is they're very multidimensional, and what I would call gray is because they touch on all different aspects, especially in their later work. They really get into the esoteric, into the occult, and into the symbolism. But after listening to them and getting into them for a while, and they're huge Aleister Crowley supporters, which I'm not necessarily for or against that man, but they make it to where you can have an open mind into exploring those topics and exploring those kinds of people without any type of judgment for or against. And I really feel like that's kind of how you have to keep your mind when it comes to all this kind of stuff. You have to kind of be in that gray area, and not really reserve your beliefs. Your beliefs can be, they can be for things like people's character and your belief in someone. But as far as ideas and topics, man, like just keep on thinking and keep on creating ideas, because the moment you believe into one idea, you're kind of stuck in that.
I'm with you. I've definitely always tried to be neutral with this show, but at a certain point, neutrality, especially with the occult stuff, is seen as endorsement. Just hearing someone out about it is seen as like, people think I sign off on every guest, on everything every guest says. And really, it's just like, I just want to hear what this guy has to say. And at the end of the day, with most episodes, I'm like, that was really interesting. Like, it doesn't change my worldview. Maybe there's some things, every episode's different, but it's just something to add to your worldview rather than to replace your worldview. And now you're on this new pivot to the earth is flat. Definitely. It's just one of those things, man. I like to hear people out, but I also have learned that it's best to not commit to anything really, because how often have you looked back at what you were committed to, what you were sure of 5-10 years ago and been like, man, what an idiot I was.
Yeah.
Especially when you're on the air, you know, when your whole situation is just recorded online. It's better to be neutral than to double down on much of anything.
Absolutely.
That's the reality.
Have that open mind, man. And that's why I love your show, man. And that's why I love your approach to a lot of things is you're very much, like you just said, open to exploring the ideas. And instead of saying, I believe this, let's explore it. Let's entertain it. Let's indulge it. Mm-hmm. Earlier, I made a quick comment about the gang stalking thing. I don't believe in it either one way or the other. I found it to be the most entertaining thing recently on YouTube. It just started appearing on my feed. And you're right. A lot of these people can come off very paranoid, even borderline schizophrenic. I've actually had a friend who many of my other friends say, oh, he's schizophrenic. And I would consider him to be more of a seer, but it's kind of this weird mixed bag where you kind of have to like say, you know what, in the framework of this world, in this functioning world, he is a schizophrenic. You know, sees things all the time, sees numbers coming out of light bulbs and all this kind of stuff.
Wow. No.
Yes. Wow. Still functioning and whatnot. He also is deaf. I mean, I think that has something to do with it as well. Him being limited in one sense heightens another and, you know, opens his third eye or whatever.
Yeah, they say that.
Yeah. Well, it was good talking to you. I really don't have anything else to say.
You as well. You got to take care of that dog, man.
Yeah.
He's dying back there.
Oh man, they're always chapping. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, it was great talking to you. You take care.
Good talking to you, man. I'll call again sometime.
All right. Peace. Good man, Dust Crane. The names get me. You come up with a name that I'm going to think is funny to say aloud, you'll probably get on. So again, with the YouTube thing, there are more people watching on YouTube than on the Zoom platform. And it's just so funny because they can't hear the callers. And as I've said before, they've got weird blocks on me over at YouTube. So we're doing like a double stream, but they're just not connected. And so YouTube is there to feed you on over to Zoom so you can get involved. You can actually hear the callers and you can raise your hand and then I will call on you and we can talk. We started at 7. Most of them are an hour or 2. We're going to make it to 2 hours, I think, for sure. With this system, it isn't ideal. If you're on YouTube, it sucks. You're probably bored. I understand, but I'm trying to tell you, it's at the end of most of the shows where I say go to Facebook and Twitter for the links, and the link would be getting you to Zoom. I appreciate if you just randomly stumbled across this. I'd like you to tell me about some weird stuff that you've experienced, or maybe your dad is in the CIA, or maybe you can tell me something interesting about local government corruption. There's all kinds of stuff out there. We got all kinds of little micro examples that kind of support our larger belief structure. And I like hearing about that stuff. So, all right. Hands up. Maps Bolt, you got me. I mean, did you just pick 2 random words? What's happening, Maps Bolt? Don't abandon me now. Maps Bolt. You have to allow for your microphone. You have to allow those permissions or whatever. Give me something, Maps Bolt. Oh, I'm going to have to cut you loose, Maps. All right. Let's go with Tom. We're going to keep Maps Bolt in here in case he comes back from making tea and says, oh, shit, I'm on. But Tom.
What's up, man?
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. You're wondering about, like, government corruption and whatnot.
I love hearing about government corruption.
Local stuff. It's like township I'm in Penn Hills. It's like in suburban Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Like some weird stuff. The school district just lost like billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars. They built new schools, and it seems as though the schools are probably going to go into, they're going to go under. That the state's taking them over, and I guess what happens, the state takes them over, and then they essentially go. They end up going by the wayside because the tests never go better, and then the charter schools come in, and that's, I don't know if you know about DeVos and all that sort of situation.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, the Penn Hills it's great. Like the money is, the people who ran the township, they have like a house in Florida, like they own the towing company that, like, tows everybody's car when people get drunk in town, and it's interconnected corruption. I assume that's just how it works all the way up the ladder,
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's little microcosms of it all over the country. I mean, even I got a buddy who just bought a condo, like, wow, it's here in San Diego. That is not easy to do. And he was able to do it. And, he gets in there and he realizes that his condo association cabal is completely just raping them and embezzling all the money. He has to pay an extra $400 a month for the HOA association. And the leader of it is this woman. The vice president is her son. The parking lot just got a new electric charger put into it. And guess who has the only electric car? It's that's everywhere you look. There's some motherfucker, just completely taking advantage of some situation. But, not surprised.
I think they got us to like the sum of it's like 20-some billion or something like that. And now they want to raise everybody's taxes to the point where most people can't even afford to pay them here at this point. They like the school is terrible. Testing is terrible. But on a very strange conspiratorial note, there is an old abandoned slag plant that I used to go ride like dirt bikes and quads in, and they actually, one of the colleges from down at the city, I'm trying to think of who it was. It was Carnegie Mellon or something like that. They were operating some autonomous vehicle down there that was like a military test, for military testing.
Wow.
That's weird, right? Like, they used to have people, they'd chase you off. I actually had a guy from high school I went to school with. He was driving a little 4x4, truck. He'd come chase me off and told me I had to get out of there, because they were, he was just like security, they hired. He's like, yeah, it's just autonomous. He said, it'll run you over, But yeah, they try to keep people away from it. But the really interesting thing is they buried barrels, like 55-gallon drums of who knows what. I got a lot of guts, but not enough to want to crawl down in to a pit full of blue barrels that I have no idea what they were.
Dude, tell me about it. I just saw this documentary about an area in St. Louis where they did exactly that. It was going to be a park, but they had already dumped a bunch of stuff there, and just crazy. I was even watching The Prophet. I like that show. I think it's kind of interesting. So totally unrelated to conspiracy. And I'm watching that, and he's trying to help this guy. And this guy thinks that what he needs for his business is to buy this giant warehouse on the other side of town. And he's like, Marcus, I'm buying it. It's going to be great for our storage. We do need to get a sign off from the EPA because there was a corporation that owned this who dumped a lot of toxic material beneath the surface, but it's okay. We're going to get a cleanup crew out here. We're going to get all that dirt out of here, and we're going to have this great facility. And I'm like, whoa, I'm trying to decompress from work here, and you're bringing it right to my door. And it's just interesting. Everywhere you look, some corporation has done something shitty, and especially in terms of dumping materials places, I just think we live in such a toxic world that we're all getting sick. And I interview so many guests who are saying autism is this, cancer is that. And it's like, how do you pick a fucking poison from this goddamn list of 24 things that could be killing us? These goddamn lights are probably killing me right now that I'm under.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing when you get down to it.
It is. That glyphosate, it is in fucking everything. It's going to be the end of us all. I'm quite worried about that.
I actually like to listen to that Suspicious Observer.
Okay, yeah.
Ben, he's like, I've been listening to him for the past probably 5 or 6 years since he got on YouTube, and he's that whole. I like the whole positive mindset, the placebo effect.
That's true. I think about that a lot, actually, that before I did this show, I didn't know all this shit was bad for me. And so I could get by on placebo. And now I almost have a reverse situation where I think this shit is so bad for me that when I do cave and make poor dietary choices, I am so mentally hard on myself. And I'm just like, dude, you're fucking killing yourself. You're fucking killing yourself right now. Why? Because you think this tastes good? You think this shit? I'm so mean to myself. And that probably has an effect. Even if the stuff is poison, it probably has a worse, it's a multiplier, I'm sure.
Yeah, as you said, the Tool song Schism, it's a dualistic sort of thing. It pulls you both directions at every moment,
It does. That's life.
Yeah, that's that thing, a place I said where they were dumping they put those barrels. They actually, they dump slag there from the old steel plants.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they shut it down is that the slag has like radiation levels. They were still hauling years ago. They used to put it around the foundations of houses, and which actually is probably some of the cause of like radon gas and stuff in people's houses. But that they want you to install a $5,000 pipe with a fan on it to pump it outside, it's not actually radon gas from the ground. It's just testing positive from the stuff they filled around the foundation of the house. But this area that, they dumped all this stuff, they were hauling it out of there, and they stopped hauling it because it was testing too high. They had a Geiger counter at the the weighing station when you went out of there, and they tested trucks, and when it started going too high, they stopped, and they ended up shutting the whole facility down. That was actually before they stopped using slag. So obviously it must have been pretty bad.
You see that all the time. Just don't record the data, because even if it's so bold to not have the data, not having the data is better than having the data that proves that you're really fucking up bad. That's the whole vaccine game. They just don't let there be studies of they say that they can't do it because it'd be unethical to have an unvaccinated population just for the study. It'd be unreasonable. So I don't know. You just see that everywhere. That kind of, it's like, how do you not have that data? What? But it's like, well, we know it's going to be bad. So it's better to not have it than to just admit that we're killing you.
Yeah, like I said, the school district, how they lost all their money. The state or the federal government came in and actually overseen it. They had, Attorney General came in and spoke. That was here for like I think it was about a year or two, almost 2 years, and they found nothing. Nothing. It was a lot of money that went missing, So, and they actually just found absolutely nothing, and people were kind of outraged. They had a meeting up out in front of the old building up, like the main town hall place, and basically nobody showed up. Everybody pretty much gave up. A year and a half in, the morale was more or less. A lot of people kind of thought they're going to get someone, or find out where the money went or whatnot. But
right,
year and a half goes by, and people are just like, who knows?
Man.
I'll let you get going on to some other people.
All right, man. Hey, it was good talking to you. Thanks for calling in.
Nice talking to you, man. I've been listening for a long time.
I appreciate it.
Or one of my favorites, I guess, you know?
Too kind. Too kind. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right, man. Peace. You too. Good dude, Tom. Wow. Guys, all right, I think we're going to take a couple more. If you are in the Zoom part of this thing, at the bottom of your screen, towards the middle, you should see some buttons. One of them is raise your hand. If you want to keep this party going, raise that hand. Let's get you involved. I'm seeing some hands getting raised. I love it. Whew, they're flowing in now. Ruben, what do you got for me?
I just have a couple suggestions for guests. I don't know if you ever heard of Aaron Leach.
Aaron Leach, I have not.
Yeah, he's a pretty good occultist. I felt like would be a good guest for you. And then also Frater Ashen Chisan. You ever heard of him?
No, Frater. One more time.
Ashen Chisan.
Ashen Chisan.
Yeah,
okay.
They're great guests that I've heard on other podcasts like A Culture and stuff, and I just feel that would be a perfect fit for you.
Well, tell me a little bit about their perspective. Aaron Leach, what's his repertoire?
Well, he kind of started. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, but he got started in the Golden Dawn.
Sorry, he got started in the Golden Dawn. Did you say?
Yes, and he was learning about old grimoires through somebody that was in the ATF, African tribal, or ATR's African tribal religions.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and so he learned through that and stuff, and did his Abramelin when he was young, so got a hold of his HGA.
Ooh.
And then Frater Ashen Chisan was more somebody that uses the grimoires to do more of the angelic accessing and stuff.
Okay. And they basically, do they talk about their own experiences mainly, or do they have their own schools?
Yeah, they got online courses for sure.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole of the occult guests for a while. People even started to complain about the amount of occult guests, and I do try to keep it balanced, but I'm definitely ready to fold in some more of those occult guests again, because that is a pillar to me, a pillar of what they have kept from us and what they're using, and it's an esoteric toolbox. It's more related to the natural world and what our environment's really like, what's really baked into our environments once we get away from the TV. And that's worth exploring. It's not evil to explore it.
Not at all, man.
I'm ready to go back into those waters for sure.
Yeah, that's what drew me in. And another good guest would be Jason Miller as well.
Jason Miller, I have interviewed a couple of times. He is a good guest. This is a book that just showed up. I don't know if you can see the screen, but Egregores by Mark Stavish. And I'm pretty sure we are putting that on the docket. We're in the finding a date phase, but the book's here already. I mean, it's not impossible that this doesn't happen. I do get a lot of books, and then they're like, no, they don't want to do your show. I said, all right, cool. But that's on the list. I got one other one too. This one is booked. It's not recorded, but it is booked, and it's more about the esoteric spiritualism of the North, of Hyperborea and that kind of shit. So I'm kind of excited. I'm really not that far into it, but Beyond the North Wind, the Fall and Rise of the Mystic North. Just based on the description and flipping through it and hearing his previous interviews, I'm psyched. I think it's going to be a good one. So we're trying to get back there, is what I'm saying, with some occult guests.
Yeah, so Aaron Leach would be good. He has a book that's about ritual offerings. So it's more like a companion to Gordon White.
Okay.
So he kind of specifics down of like what to do and stuff of like how to make the offerings, you know, like your ancestor altar and all that stuff. So
cool.
That's why I felt like he would be a good guest.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for the recommendations. I'll check them out.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Was that all?
That's it.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. You have a good night.
You as well.
Ruben, killing it. I mean, it is funny. I understand that it makes people a little bit nervous to talk on the internet in front of a forum of people. That's why I drink and smoke, guys. Get on the level. This isn't going to bother you. We're just having a hang. All right. Randall Skeffington. You know, since I told people to raise their hand, we got a long list here. I mean, there's about 50 people on the Zoom side. There should be, I think, 25 hands up. Doesn't most people want to talk? All right. Randall Skeffington. Clearly heard what I said about names. What do you got for me, Randall? Don't tell me you're leaving me hanging, Randall. I've had Mapspol in here for 3 calls. He could pop in any moment. I'm going to leave you in there as well. I think I'm going to do one joint session where every 10 or 15 minutes, we just add someone until I can't add any more people. We don't take anyone away. If you want to leave, I guess you can, but it would be cool to just like, all right, we're bringing in another one. Maybe I'll just start doing that now. Bruce Sopas. Bruce, get ready. Ready, set, Bruce.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. What's happening?
Hey, not too much, man. I'm just hanging, listening to your show, enjoying a little higher sideways.
Okay.
I gotta say, I like to run and listen to you, and I come back and write. And what you're talking about most of the time flows into a lot of what I've been researching myself and have a bit of a background in, especially your magic shows. And I really want you to keep up those magic shows, so I'm getting a lot out of that.
Cheers, man. I'm down to do that. I always try to stay balanced, but I went too hard on magic for a couple of months, and now I've gone too soft. And it's just the nature of booking and only having 5 shows a month. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, I want to do one topic. I want to do a 5G show. So I'll fire off like 3 or 4 or 5 emails to 5G people and see who gets back to me. And if 2 get back to me, then I try to space them out. But you know, sometimes it's just the difficulty of not everyone you ask says yes. And, you know, then you're booked out for 2 months if 10 people respond. And then to fold magic back in takes a while, like 60 or 90 days.
Yeah, man, I get it. Logistics are a bitch.
Yeah, my job sucks. I can't.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is Peter Levenda has a lot of great books about Nazis and about magic and about the aftermath of World War II and a lot of other subjects. I'm sure you're probably pretty familiar with them. Mm-hmm. But have you talked to him about being a guest? Have you been able to get him as a guest?
He has been on the show. He's been on the show at least 2 times, possibly 3. I would have to look that up. But I just know that the first one was about Sinister Forces and the 9. That saga is so interesting. And the other one I can think of was about his book, The Lovecraft Code, which is kind of like the Da Vinci Code, where it weaves in, it's a fictional story, but it tries to weave in some strange truth. And it is a good book, but I always have a difficulty with that because it's like, well, where's the line here? You know, what liberties did you take?
I'm kind of like, I'm working on a novel right now. I'm working through those same things. I live in Dallas, so it's kind of like the heart of conspiracy land. Mm-hmm. And so much around here. And I worked in Highland Park in the restaurant business for a long time and got to know a lot of very interesting and colorful characters that way who had a lot of interesting things to say about Dallas history. But yeah, I think it's really hard, personally myself, to draw the line on where you need to interweave fiction because the fact is just so interesting. Like, I mean, if you study like the Nazi aftermath of World War II, where the rat lines led, which was pretty much all over, but like you can definitely see like the direct Nazi involvement that resulted in the 6-Day War that put Israel on the very right-wing path that it is now.
Yeah, the Israel connection is looser in my mind, but definitely where the rat lines went, Hitler escaping, the Argentinian stuff. Sorry, what was that?
Otto Skorzeny.
Yeah, Peter Levenda is great on that stuff. Joseph Farrell, another one who's great to fold in when it comes to post-Nazi survival after World War II. Are you a Farrell fan? Did I lose you?
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Bruce, what's happening? I can. Are you a Farrell fan?
I'm sorry, things froze up for me for just a second. Can you repeat whatever was the last thing you said?
Yeah, are you a Farrell fan? Joseph, not so much Will?
Yeah. I've been working my way through Brotherhood of the Black Sun lately.
Ooh, yes. He's great because he is a professor of religion and like something in that regard, but he's very good about the esoteric as well because of that background. So he folds that into the history, and it's great because not a lot of people do.
Yeah, I have listened to a lot of shows with him as a guest and read a bit of his work. I find a lot of what he says to be very on point, but there's also like some of the stuff that I have to do more research in to buy into it.
Fair.
But my grandfather was a minimum of 32nd degree Mason, you know how that works. But when he passed on, I inherited his library, which had a lot of interesting work that very much leaned towards a lot of the Aleister Crowley side. So I've always felt that the people who are touching on Crowleyism when they're talking about the deeper conspiracies are a little bit more on point, because I think that Crowley was just sort of a messenger of a lot of what was already being practiced.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think Crowley is, as a character, he seems larger than life. He's blown up quite a bit, but he's really, I mean, he did do some fundamental stuff, but he's largely just a connection to older and wider esoteric knowledge. He just popularized a lot of stuff. And when people say they're like a Crowley fan, it really, it's a catch-all term. Like, he's become this giant catch-all term for just saying you're interested in alternative, occult, esoteric topics.
Like he's a sanctified occult figure.
Right. He's a liaison to that world and that material.
Yeah, like the history that you see with like, James Fraser kind of like leads into that whole English development of Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like, if you also look at like what was going on like in Egypt at that same time, that was like when you had Budge doing a lot of his work, and like you see this underground movement. And if you look at all those guys, they're all Masons.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to let you go just because you got to take care of that dog, and your connection isn't the best, but I'm glad you like the esoteric shows. I agree with you about Crowley. The last caller as well. I'm gonna get more into that for sure. Even just the occult history and what you can do on a personal level that doesn't involve necessarily dialing up some sketchy entities. I think magic can incorporate so many things: remote viewing, astral travel, meditation. These are things we need to be doing. They just are.
Yeah, it's incorporating the understanding of the world. Thanks for your time, Greg.
You got it, man. Take care, Bruce.
You too, buddy. Enjoy it.
Good old Bruce. I did say I might just start adding people, but it's tough to start that when someone has a dog going crazy like that. I get it. These animals. You know, I heard something the other day I thought was kind of interesting about it's an upcoming guest. I don't think it's on the show though, but it is something that I heard from their previous interviews about maintaining a good gut biome and the fact that we live in these sterile environments and we're just taking in all this negative food, but yet we're not getting in the dirt. We're not connecting with the earth, which is, you know, good for our gut biome. We need to have more of an ecosystem, reciprocal relationship with the dirt and the earth and getting these microbes on us and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you know, in the modern world, the best thing you can do is you got the pets. The pets go outside, they come in, they jump up on the couch, and you get a little of that good, sweet earth that you just weren't getting. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's cool. I don't know. One of those things. Guy, we're bringing you in. What do you got for me, Guy? What's on your mind? Hopefully unmuting that microphone.
Can you hear me, Greg?
I can. What's happening? Yes.
Wow, this is great. Hey, today's my birthday, by the way.
Oh, shit. Happy birthday.
Hey, thanks, man. It's really cool.
Everybody.
I'm glad.
Raise a glass.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a little beer myself, a little smoke myself. It's wonderful. I want to talk about, I was just going to text. I'm all about living closer to the land. Like a lot of people, I did the 9 to 5, the grind, raised a couple families. On my own now, well, with my girl. And I'm just really interested in permaculture and people, urban gardening and being able to grow your own food and have some security in these unusual times that we're living in.
Yes.
And I appreciate your show, and I'm just glad to have a chance to chat with you.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Did you like the Peter Allen show? That was a recent permaculture guest.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm listening to one today, and there's quite a few up and comers now. And what I like is they're not the gurus we thought they were. This stuff is not voodoo. You get out there, you get in the dirt, throw some seeds down, throw some water down, and it'll happen. It just takes a little bit of practice, like everything does.
And you start to have such reverence for the earth because we're so disconnected from that. It seems like magic. It's like, wow. You really can just grow.
Oh, it is the neatest thing. I let volunteer trees grow, and I prune the ones I don't want, and I keep the ones I do for shade and privacy and other things in a suburb.
Yeah.
And still trying to have a garden and not draw the neighbor's attention, unwanted attention. Some people enjoy it. A lot of people think, hey, you know, where's the yard and the 2 cars that aren't over 5 years old, you know. But I have older things and old buildings and things like that I'm trying to raise chickens in the suburbs, and it's not hard. You put a seed in the ground, and these trees, they just grow volunteer, and they grow so fast. You've got free wood in 5 years, and with the fruit trees and the berry plants you can grow, at least you've got something to munch on, even if it's not sustainable. It's like you said, it's good to get back to the earth. And we've got barn cats. We don't have a barn because we're in the suburbs, but we have, that's my shop heater going on. I'm out in my shop. And, but I just wanted to say that I think it's really important for people to get back to gardening, like we used to have the volunteer gardens, you know, to help fight during the wars we've had. And that's really what I'm all about. I just like to see more of that type of guests on your show.
Cool, man. Yes. I'm with you. I will be honest. There are some I've approached that are really kind of leaders of thought in permaculture adjacent things, even like foraging or herbology or like these kind of people. And I've sent them my interview request letter. I've got a pretty nice one made up. It doesn't take you too long to read. It gets right to the sweet stuff. It really, I've dialed it in. And they take a look at the website and they're like, why would I want to be on this show? And why would you want me on this show? And it's unfortunate because some people, they're not, if they won't associate if the word conspiracy is in my description.
Yeah, that is too bad, because this all grew from my respect for conspiracy. I don't like that term. Obviously, it's a government term, but for alternative thought about the way that we're asked to live by the powers that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But and that's what got me into permaculture and gardening.
That's awesome. I mean, I've been thinking about this same kind of stuff because so they're doing this big crackdown on conspiracy podcast shows, conspiracy hosts, that kind of thing. And we just talked about earlier, people like Wolfgang Halbig and Jim Fetzer getting sued by the parents at Sandy Hook. And it's like, I've done Sandy Hook shows and I've gotten put in YouTube timeout for those specific shows. And it's like, at this point, what's more beneficial for other people, a permaculture show or a show breaking down Sandy Hook? And what's better for me? Same thing. It's a win-win, because these are the tools that overcome the system we're in. And they're also not the things that are going to get your fucking channel shut down, because I want to live on. So to me, it's a double whammy. And so I am leaning into that. Obviously, everything that I've always covered is going to be in the soup, but I do think solutions are key at this point. How many more times do you need to hear about chemtrails? What do you not know? What do you need to hear?
Exactly. I mean, I appreciate your guest on the occult. All those things I studied, I went down all those rabbit holes. Like I said, I'm an older guy, and I've been outside the system for a long, long time, and still have to be in it. You know how that is.
1 foot in, of course.
Yeah, and it is interesting that there isn't more crossover. But also, I would like to say that even going down those rabbit holes in the occult and the magic, that is great knowledge to kind of know why you should be trying to make it on your own.
Yeah, I agree.
But it shouldn't be the focus. I think that a lot of guys get a little wrapped up in, I want to know, I did, for example, where did it all begin? Why did it get this way? I believe personally I'm here to watch the end of another epoch. I came to watch this happen because I couldn't understand how intelligent human beings can let it go to hell like we have. Right. And now I've got a pretty good idea, and it's unfortunate. It is. And if we take back our own power, and the way to do that is provide yourself or try to be the most self-sustainable you can.
I agree. I'm right there with you, man. Cheers.
Yeah, at nighttime you can study the magic and have some fun on the weekends. But during the week, I think it's really fun. And it is fun for me. I mean, it's work. I'm putting in underground systems right now. I'm doing a whole new sewer and water system. And it's just me. I don't have any other person to do it. So it takes time, and you get frustrated because it's so slow because you're the only guy doing it. But the rewards are just wonderful. My chickens give me eggs. I've only got 4. That's all I need. And I think everybody should really try as hard as they can to get outside and get rid of that lawn and get some vegetables growing.
Yes, I'm with you. It's just the sad reality is that so many of us, at least my generation, we don't even have control over our living space.
That's true.
It's so fucking difficult when you got a landlord and you're sharing walls with people, and you might not even have even a patch of grass to call your own.
Yeah.
It really does suck. It's like, what's a permaculture show going to do for some of those people?
Yeah, it's tough. And there's Gilly Paltnick, there's some other channels that container gardening. There's, all over YouTube, of course. But container gardening, I even do it here because it's just an easier way to control. it's a nice way to find out too where plants like to live. Put them in a pot, put them in a certain place. If they grow there, maybe next year you can put them in soil if you have it. But if not, you can grow a lot of food without having lights and the aquaculture and all the different, what would you call it, technology you need.
Yeah.
That if it fails, you're done. You can still grow in a windowsill like we used to do back when I was a young man in Missouri on the farm.
Yeah.
We just everything started in a window box. That's when you knew spring was coming.
Where in Missouri?
Oh, this was a long time ago. Oh shit, I can't even remember now. It wasn't Springfield. It was boy, I couldn't tell you. I was a young man. I moved from there, and I was flown clear across halfway across the United States. I lived in Georgia, and then I've been on the West Coast since I was 10 years old.
Yes, you don't want to relive it. You don't want to relive that Missouri chapter. I understand that.
Yeah, right now it's tough down there. I've got a couple of cousins. Their last name is Strange, by the way, kind of neat. And they are having a tough time down there. The weather is just really getting to them. And with this new global warming, this mini ice age kind of thing coming on, and then all the government entities are telling you about it's warming, people are confused and they want to do the right thing. They want to support their family. But then here's their brother, their big brother, their mother telling them, oh, it's getting warmer, you're fine. When the reality is it's getting colder, and we all need to kind of take a look at where our food might be coming from the next 5 years, 10 years.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That was the last show I did with Gordon White. That was a big part of it. It was assessing conspiracy culture and this and that. And he basically said that same thing. He's like, just fundamentally ask yourself, is it going to be in the next 15 years, is it going to be more expensive or less expensive to get a tomato? Is that tomato going to be higher quality or lower quality? Take your pick. It's obvious that it's always, at this point, just getting more expensive and lower quality to the point that it's actually maybe going to be the thing that kills you if it's full of glyphosate and other things like that. So, when are you going to take the reins of your life? When are you?
Right. At my age. I mean, I didn't start all this until my last, family life was over. My kids are, now in their 30s. And so, yeah, it took a long time to get woke enough. I don't like that term, but, to get motivated to get this done. And fortunately, I have a really good partner, and she's still out making the fiat dollar. Mm-hmm. And then I'm at home trying to put it all together and make it work for us long term. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It is difficult. I really enjoy the show, and I appreciate the time you've taken to talk to me.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Again, cheers.
Yep, you got it right here, buddy. Cheers.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Guy, thanks, man. Happy birthday to Guy. He's definitely going for it. I really think it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like the gym, or let's even give a more personal and detailed answer or, example. But for my birthday, my wife, because we're watching MMA all the time, she got me a gift card to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here in town. And what month are we in? We're deep into April. I haven't even gone. I got that for Christmas. And it's like a little intimidating. But it's like, it'd be good for you. And you want to do it too. But that's the whole taking the real reins of your life to control your own food supply. It's difficult. It's one of those things where it's like, to try is intimidating because people are afraid of failure. It's why so many people stay at a shitty job and don't take a chance on something. I did that for a long time. THC could have been the idea was swirling around long before it came to fruition. And I probably could have quit my job even earlier, but I was so scared I had to wait till it was super, super safe. I just had a lot of support, luckily. My special lady was like, nothing bad can happen. You just need to pull the trigger. And, luckily it worked out. Without that support system, I never would have got over the fear of failure. And now I have a successful show. I control my own life. I have no boss. I have no boss, but I don't control my own life because I don't control my own food supply. And at any time, I could get shut down and my business can't survive EMP attack, So there's that. And so the real next step is to take control of my life in a sustainable way. And that is scary. That's my next fear of failure to overcome. And I think that probably a lot of people feel that way. It's one thing at a time, but you do not want to fail with something like that, or with your fucking jujitsu gift card thing. You get it. Daniel, save me, Daniel. I'm dying here.
Hey, Greg.
What's up, man?
What's going on, dude? Not too
This
much.
is it. You're looking at it. I'm great. Can't complain.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. You were talking about like local type conspiracy things. So
Yes.
I'm in. So, as you know, Alex Jones started out.
Sorry, you cut out. You're in what? You're in Austin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Alex Jones, of course, started out as, the cable access host down here. So do you know about the Frost Bank? Like the owl?
No, the Frost Bank? No.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, Alex Jones would always, it's just this huge bank tower downtown.
Mm.
And basically, Alex Jones would refer to it as Moloch, even though it's, an owl.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I was wondering what you thought about that, like why he would refer to the bank as, or the owl as Moloch so often when it's actually apparently some sort of
bull,
like a bull. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think that's like deliberate misinformation from him, or?
It's a curious thing, man. I definitely am skeptical of Alex Jones, and he is famous for that footage of Bohemian Grove, and he did misidentify. It was early. I mean, maybe his research was bad. He does seem to be pretty loose-lipped with the facts. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. Did he help me out in the beginning when I was just looking for something? Yes, but it was always with the caveat of, I'm here in spite of you to hear this information because this is the only place that I could get it at the time. Coast to Coast was the only other venue, and that's on every Christian AM station in the country. So you got the Glenn Beck and the Sean Hannity people are the ones who were calling in to a show like that. So that was a weird thing too. So there was no real great venue, and I always had to overlook a lot of things to get a few of the juicy details that I wanted. And when I set off to make this show, it was all about, do not fall into that trap. Be exact, cover the same material, but do it right. Spend 99% of the show letting this fucking person talk about their research.
Right. Well, I mean, that's exactly what happened to, once George Norrie took over Coast to Coast AM. Like, Art Bell was all right, but George Norrie just completely destroyed that show. So that's the point at which I found you, where I was like, I can't listen to this anymore. So yeah, I'm glad you're around because it's the only thing I listen to for this type of stuff now. So
thank you. And, as the show's grown, especially in the last couple of years, people have started to really they get skeptical of me. And it's like, you know what? You don't even really have to like me to like THC because I'm barely even in it. It's not the Greg Carlwood show. I introduce them so you have context, and then I try to let them go.
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel like you interject your personal feelings into like most of the interviews I've listened to. At least, so
I know. I have had a few Christian guests and things lately where I've definitely pushed back a good degree, and it's only because I don't want to play fast and loose with connections like, oh, well, we're playing like 6 degrees of Crowley, Kevin Bacon kind of thing. And we're just labeling everything evil. And it's like, whoa. I want to make sure that this is actually evil. We're not just being paranoid, because that's also propaganda from a different type of authority that is still permeating through our culture, that taking the reins of your own consciousness is bad. We're talking about, taking the reins of your food supply and this and that. Your own mind is a whole thing to unlock that takes a lifetime to really cultivate the tools. And to just put up your cross fingers and be like, that's all evil. Well, where'd you get that idea? That's not your idea.
Yeah, that's why I have to question the term satanic anytime I hear it in one of these, formats or, shows, because I mean, that means so many different things to so many different people that, are you talking about Church of Satan? Are you talking about like some sort of theistic Satanism? And they're very reluctant to expand upon that. A lot of times it's just like, oh, it's Satanism. And it's like, I don't know.
I'm with you. People, Freemasons are an organization that I'm definitely skeptical of. People always, I've been using this symbol for a while back here, and people are so paranoid about it. And clearly it's a parody. I mean, I feel like that should be pretty obvious. Do you think Masons would appreciate that?
Octopus arms coming out of the...
Yeah. Do you think they would appreciate me taking the G that stands for God and replacing it with the name of my show? You think they'd appreciate that? I mean, that's kind of insulting. The clock at the top says 420. It's alien grays with a pyramid and DNA strands. I mean, a lot of Masons, if they're very serious about their shit, I think that'd be a little offensive. This is a massive parody, but to some people, it means I'm a Mason, which is like the stupidest thing ever. Do you think that if I was a secret Mason, that like I'd be forced to show you the logo? I mean,
like getting mad.
You would never know. If I didn't want you to fucking know, you would never fucking know. So it's just a little silly. And my background is so mundane. It's insane. And all I do is interview people. So we'd have people who definitely talk about Masonic operations and rituals as very negative things. And we also talk to people like Randall Carlson, who, is a Freemason and is very proud of his Masonry, but also has a lot of other interesting things to say. And he's not hurting anyone, and he's sharing information. So, you can't blame him for, if you think there's some sketchy things in the organization. I do think there are. It's not this man's cross to bear.
Right. Yeah. And I guess, as far as the Moloch thing, I've always heard the explanation that, it's because there was a mock human sacrifice at Bohemian Grove, so that correlates with, Moloch, the bull. But I don't know. It's interesting. Look into Ross Bank. Like, I mean, it is very clearly like an owl type. Whoever the architect was for that was clearly intending for it to look like that. And it like stands out in the middle of the city. So something to look into.
Interesting. There are interesting esoteric symbols everywhere. I really liked those shows about Philadelphia. They were kind of back to back with Ross Ben and Michael Wan. We talked about just that area. This shit's everywhere, man. It is everywhere. San Diego's got some crazy stuff. One of the most esoteric things I've ever fucking seen is in San Diego. And I got a little obsessed. I got a little into this company, SAIC, because it's come up on a couple different shows in the context of this is one of the private corporations involved in MyLab abduction experience, exotic weaponry technology, flying saucer craft. Like, this is one of the companies, and their headquarters is here. So I was like, man, every time I see this building, I'm a little creeped out by it. Well, I heard about this other place in San Diego where they have other offices near La Jolla, and out front is this giant flat pool of water, and they have a giant obelisk in the center of it. And then on the left side is a guy sitting in a chair, and he's like a pharaoh. He's all Egyptianed out, and he's holding a little pyramid. And then on the right side, like a bookend, is another person sitting in a chair holding a pyramid, and they're all warped, kind of like Picasso painting. It's basically like a Picasso person. And I'm like, what a perfect statue-esque representation of a transhumanist transformation.
Right.
Like, that's what that is. So you've got this from Egypt to an obelisk to this to these little pyramids. Like, this is right fucking there on the street. It's really wild. And again, this esoteric stuff is everywhere. I took pictures of it and I was going to post them, and I was like, without any context, it doesn't work. And who gives a shit? It's just a throwaway post. Like, it'll be gone tomorrow. But it's interesting. The pictures don't do it justice, but you can look it up. SAIC obelisk statue, San Diego. I'm sure it'll yield results, but that stuff's everywhere.
How did you, like, other people have researched them and found that they were doing these things? Like,
yeah, it came up on a show that I referenced earlier with Robert Guffey. He wrote a book called Camelio about a guy who was harassed by the military here in San Diego because he stumbled into some like military grade goggles, and he crossed paths with a guy who stole some stuff from Camp Pendleton, which is out here. And that's a news story. Like, that really happened. And apparently he crossed paths with this guy, and then the harassment latched onto him. And he's got some wild stories. He talks about the invisible elves because he was sure that in his house was people that were like wearing like invisible camouflage, and they would bump into him to try to drive him crazy. Like, in his house, people that are, I would believe that they would test stuff like that on a person.
oh yeah.
And his book is fascinating because the whole premise is like, they didn't expect this loser donkey in San Diego to know a guy like me, to know a journalist, but he does know a journalist. And so I'm writing about what happened to him as he talked about it. Yeah, it's a really great book. And that is where SAIC first got on my radar, because he referenced it and he said that. And then I had another guest, Melinda Leslie, who's a ufologist guest, and she talked about it. And then I just started being like, and you know, we know there's these corporations in this UFO nexus. You just need to hear their names. And it's the name SAIC stands for, I'd have to look it up real quick, but it is something like science and technology. You know, that's their name. It's something sciencey.
Yeah.
So it is like in the realm, even the name alone is in the realm of this. Science is Applied, someone says. Science is Applied International Corporation or something like that.
Wow. Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're very subtle with their imagery. They're like holding pyramids in each hand. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. Like I say, you can go through all day examples. Like, part of the joint sessions, I hope, with people bringing that stuff to light. So, yeah, kudos to you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking my call, Greg.
Of course, man. Sorry to talk your ear off. I'm deep into this whiskey and the weed and the whole thing.
That was interesting. All right. Later.
All right. Peace, man. Fun stuff. I would try to share my screen, but I'm just afraid that, you know, the YouTube people are already annoyed that they're not hearing the guests, and there's so many more of them than the Zoom room itself. So it's so goofy that they don't jump over to Zoom. It's a browser-based thing. You don't have to download anything. As far as I know, you just hop right in there, and then you can hear the callers, and you can also call. We are deep into it, 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I have actually an interview in the morning. I brought this up a couple of times, Toxic Home, Conscious Home. I am recording this interview in the morning, and I've got a little bit of ways to go. And it's a great book. It is basically Dr. Rob Brown is telling people that we already know that they're poisoning us and there's all these toxins in our environment. But what are we going to do about our actual home? How do we fortify our sanctuary? He folds in spirituality. He folds in feng shui. I'm talking to him about feng shui early because I'm definitely making sure that in my title, when it's like bada bing, bada boom, bada, I can have feng shui in there because we have yet to do that. I actually still think about when I had Dr. Steven Skinner on to talk about ceremonial magic. He's also a feng shui guy. And towards the end, with only like 10 minutes left, I was like, hey, about feng shui. And he was like, no, we do not have enough time to get into feng shui, sir. I'm sorry. And so I didn't get to put it in the title, even though I kind of planned for it. And I'm definitely going to make sure it's in the title. So if you're watching this, you have an inside scoop. Be ready. It's actually like 3 episodes in the future, as long as I do actually record it tomorrow. We did not confirm today, but I think Rob Brown isn't the kind of guy that needs a confirmation email the day before. And so we'll see. So I got to finish that. I did this to myself, and it's 9:20. But I'm going to take one more call. All right. And I would recommend you look up SAIC is what I was going to say, is I could share my screen, but it'd be a whole thing. All right. A lady. We got a lady. She even uploaded her photo. Sarah. You're going to have to unmute. Man, I thought we were going to break up the sausage fest, but Sarah does not want to talk, even though the hand was raised. Maybe she doesn't see how to unmute herself. It's got to be right there. She's unmuted. She's just not talking yet. Sarah, don't let me down. It's dead air. It's podcasting, you know, and it's not podcasting. It's not internet media if there's not a lot of dead air. Am I right? I definitely tried to keep dead air off of THC in general. That's why I edit it down. But these are just hangs. These are hangs. These aren't the same thing. Sarah's not saying anything. It's a shame. We do have another lady, Jeannie, though.
Hello, Mr. Carlwood.
Hey, what's happening?
I'm so excited to talk to you. You're amazing. Unfortunately, I catch a lot of the show. I'll listen to it on the another time. Thank you for your time. I know that you need to get to that book, but I want to know what you thought about us making the sea more toxic with all of the de-icers that we use. And like, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, they changed from sea salt and salt to magnesium chloride. And as far as I know, there was no study at all about how that affects the ocean and the fish and reefs. What do you think about that?
I'm sure. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Obviously, I don't have any real knowledge, but anything chemical based is probably not good to be using and dumping in the ocean. I think there's probably hundreds at least, if not thousands of things that humanity is dumping into the water that is completely destroying it. I worry. I think the earth is resilient as fuck, but I do worry about us really testing its limits. And I'm sure that that's one of many things in a giant soup of destruction that I wouldn't say we're responsible for, but God, a couple corporations definitely are.
I think absolutely. And it's affecting the trees in our area as well that are along the curbs and the roadways, because this stuff goes down the drains. It goes into the shoulders of the road and into our creek beds. And I think it's disgusting. And I didn't hear any, they said, well, sea salt is more corrosive. Well, and it doesn't work as well. Well, it doesn't work as well if we poison everything either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if anyone else has noticed that, but I live in Colorado where we have a lot of ice and snow, and so they just dump it profusely. The other thing that is annoying to me is how much people use Roundup. Just like we had a neighbor that put so much stuff on their lawn indiscriminately that all the grass died. And now there's this weird kind of mossy stuff growing on their lawn. And from what I understand, that a lot of the pesticide use that is indiscriminate is homeowners, not just the GMO gardeners. So I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who's gardening, that I'm going to do my best. I don't know. It's a tough situation. I've got a lot of dandelions. I'm not going to dig them. So
I hear you.
I don't know what to do. I think Monsanto actually hired planes and dumped dandelion seeds all over the city.
I wouldn't put it past them. Man, I definitely wouldn't put it past them. I never heard anyone bring that up, but they're definitely in the business of like creating problem reaction solution type of scenarios. And so
it's not it may be immoral and kind of creepy, but
yeah, I mean, that's on the mild end of creepy when we're talking Monsanto shit, but I do think it's a funny little possibility. The financial incentive is there.
Oh, well, thank you for your time, and thank you for all of your research. I've been listening, tried to listen to every single one. I couldn't go back for one, but I think I'd started at 73. But thank you for everything you do. And my app for voting for you is still messed up. They know I vote excellent on every show. And now when the show comes up, it already says excellent, even though I know that I haven't voted on it, and it never gives me a vote anymore. So you're compromised, and you're compromised on YouTube too, in that if I like your show on YouTube and I tilt my iPhone sideways, it erases your vote. Yes, even though if I turn my phone back up, it's still blue. Yep. And if it's over that, no one would notice it. But I noticed. I took pictures of it. So I just want to know those creepy little things they're doing. It's not going unnoticed by everybody.
Yes. Well, thank you for noticing and bringing that to my attention. Honestly, there are so many podcasters right now in this space that are observing those things and recording those things. And I'm not that kind of guy. I am just going to keep putting out my show. And I hope that listeners are aware that there is some trickery going on in the data space, but who cares how many people are listening if you like it and you continue to listen, and who cares what the thumbs up and thumbs down. Like, there's enough listeners right now that if they just keep listening, like I don't care if anyone else ever listens. I mean, I do for the sake that we need to grow and we need to spread this information outside of just ourselves. But I mean, in terms of like me making a living and everything, I'm good. I'm cool. I'm so happy. And I don't really, as long as I'm allowed to make my show, and as long as people come to the website, and as long as there's enough Plus members, which is all outside of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, like, I'm good. Patreon could shut me down tomorrow, and Twitter could say you're done, and wouldn't really be that big of a deal as long as people, kept going to the website. So I try not to think too much about that, but I appreciate you noticing it, and I definitely am not surprised.
Well, thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
For everything you do.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
That was a fun one. All right. So 2.5 hours. I am going to call it in soon, but Sarah's got her hand up again. I saw her comment that the settings weren't right. I know how it is. These fucking settings. There's like layers and layers and layers. Why do you think my show is pre-recorded, guys? I pre-record it. I deal with that stuff with the guests. You never know. I cut that right out and we just get to the action. These aren't the same thing. So mistakes happen. Sarah, don't let me down this time.
Hello.
Hey, what's happening?
Yeah, sorry about that. My settings.
It happens.
I have my microphone muted.
I get it.
I don't really know what exactly the topic is of this. I kind of jumped in at the last second.
Yes. Well, the topics are really up to the listener. We're just talking about, if you're listening to the show, you know that the general cornucopia of topics are esoteric or political and conspiratorial and paranormal. So if you've had experiences in any of these realms, or you've seen things locally, or you have theories or ideas of your own, that's really what it's about.
Well, that's relieving. I don't like sticking to a topic because I think without order and logical lapses. What I want to talk about is Rh negative blood.
I'm down. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, there's not much out there.
There's not.
And I feel like everything that is out there is extremely corrupted. I believe that the Rh negative blood is, how do I put it? It's like a beacon for a spirit of reincarnation. I believe that the bloodline has been hijacked by the elite so that they have control over a spirit that reincarnates. And this is all from personal gnosis and information that my dad gave me. Gonna sound insane, but right after he passed away. I feel like his gnosis somehow came to me. After that experience, I had memories of past lives, and I don't know who exactly I am. I'm trying to figure that out, but they're making it very difficult to do that.
Wow. Well, past lives, I definitely agree with you there. I've had a past life regression, and it was pretty powerful. And in terms of hijacking bloodlines, Peter Mark Adams was a guest I had who really studied the Tara Bushka Tarachi deck, or Sola Bushka Tarachi deck. And it's like a really elaborate artistic set of cards from way back in the day before you could just print something like that. Like they had to hire someone to make this. You knew this was an elite family who had this deck. And in
Is this the deck that didn't have any Christian symbolism in it?
I believe so. I believe that was a component of it, but it told a story of the elite making a deal with the demiurge to reincarnate and keep humanity in turmoil, and do what the elite do. They basically made a deal to keep reincarnating in the same line. Maybe that ties into why there was so much incest with the elite and the whole thing. Like, yeah, I think there's something there for sure. I think there's probably some element of truth to the idea of, if not actually succeeding in hijacking bloodlines, they're either doing their own bloodline stuff, or they at least very much care about that. It's in their cosmology, definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, whenever I would think about it, if we have archons that are embedding in us and trying to feed off of our light, and you have a blood type that is 100% more conductive because it consists of copper and not iron, and that would, that's like a much clearer radio station, and you can tune into that radio station. It seems as if you're going to make a deal with the demiurge, and it is your energy that you're giving the demiurge for the demiurge to survive, because the demiurge has fallen, not necessarily from heaven onto earth, but fallen dimensionally into darkness. And the only way this demiurge will be able to survive is to feed off the dark, or to feed off of light. I don't know. The the Gnostic text and the Nag Hammadi, a lot of it resonates with me. I don't know, I'm getting really lightheaded.
I understand that. The lightheadedness and the
like
resonation.
If I was going to make a deal with the demiurge, then the first thing I would want to do is to hijack the body that would produce the most currency. You know what I mean?
Right. If they are feeding on our energy, there's probably something to more potent antenna.
Yeah, and then well, that's way too controversial.
No, it's not.
One of my memories is really, it's from a Nazi concentration camp.
Hello.
Actually. yeah. I have many dreams, or I wouldn't say dreams, that they're more like memories to me. But what I understood from what I remember was they had a fascination with twins. And it wasn't that they were seeking out Jews because of what they believe in. They were seeking out this blood type and doing experiments on this particular blood type. This is when one of the scientists actually discovered, quote unquote, Rh negative blood was from the same time, a Nazi scientist. And their obsession with twins and things of that matter, it seems to connect in all kinds of ancient texts, like Cain and Abel being twins, things like that. Enki and Enlil being brothers, maybe twins. Who knows, really?
I've definitely speculated about the fact that what the Nazis were doing, we can't even really conceive of it, because the mainstream would never be able to conceive of the depth of what they were doing, because the occult philosophy did seem to permeate through all of it. And the mainstream just has no context. So it's just like, well, they were killing people and experimenting on Jews because they're racist. It's like, well, they probably didn't, they're not great. A lot of these people are still just regular people. You can't help how you're born necessarily. Or you shouldn't face the wrath of your elite just because you share a race with them. But yeah, I think there's something occult about it for sure.
Yeah. Well, that was a thought. I have so much information that I would like to share with you, but I'm really peculiar about what I share and claim as mine, because all I can claim as mine are my dreams and my memories and my gnosis. Don't want to, just go through and just repeat or give you my interpretation of an ancient book. I like to go through all of these things and discern, pick out little bits and pieces that make a lot of sense to me. And one of the things that made sense to me was this grand conspiracy of Planet X and Nibiru.
Right.
I don't know if you got the questions that I sent to you regarding that, but
no. In what regard were they sent?
It was sent under the Q&A.
Oh, tonight.
Yeah.
Man, because of the YouTube thing and I've just been trying to listen to people. I haven't really gotten the time to dig into that, but I'm seeing them now.
Well, yeah, there's a part where I'm saying how
did you know that in ancient cuneiform, Nibiru means one's own fruit tree? This planet is the same tree that Eve took the fruit from. Nibiru means to release one's own or to tear out one's own. This is telling us of the coming harvest of the fruit that was stolen when this body crossed. I get what you're saying.
It's pretty deep down in there, but I believe that is somehow related. And the most fascinating part is about 8 or 9 years ago, when the Russian scientists discovered a star cloaked in glycoaldehyde, which is the main component of RNA, which is half of our DNA. So that part makes sense to me. And last thing is, right after my dad passed away, he came and visited me at this apartment. And I remember in my dream, I'm back in my bedroom folding clothes, and I hear a knock on the door. I go in there and I open it up. He's happy to see my daughters. Yeah, and I go back to packing. He yells at me down the hall, and he says, "It's time to get ready. We have to go." So, I'm not really thinking much of it. I walk back in there, and he's gone, and my children are gone, and there are candles just covering my entire floor, melted candles, and in the blinds is a reddish orange light that's kind of flashing. So I step outside, and the sky is orange and it's snowing. But it's not cold though. And it's really strange because the parking lot was completely empty. Not a single soul was there with me. And I go and I sit up under a street light in my dad's recliner. And I bust out my cell phone. And then I just hear his voice. He says, "You need to stop looking down and look up." And that was it. That started my entire awakening moment. And I can never let it go. The Planet X thing, no matter how many times it's unproven or how many times it is proven, like I'm always pushing that because I've seen it with my own eyes, and I know that it's an interdimensional body, and the things that even like, in terms of flat earth, right? I have arguments about flat earth pretty often. Well, they argue with me. I don't really respond. I was thinking, if you have to raise your vibration, to move interdimensionally, then it makes sense that, through meditation, you can raise your vibration high enough to see your plane from another dimension. Your perspectives are from another dimension. You'll never relate to the people on the dimension below you, but it's not by choice, it just happens to us. So I always think of that whenever I'm trying to think about how elusive this planet is, whereas if you're in one dimension, can you not perceive the world to be round? From another dimension, the world would be flat. So just a thought.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the insights that you've gotten from personal gnosis, because I'm pretty energetically dense, as I say all the time. And so I just interview people who are way more enlightened than I am and take calls from people of a similar, cut from the similar cloth. And I think it's interesting.
Well, I appreciate what you do. I listen to your stuff all the time. It's
thank you.
Very well put together. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Well, I am going to call this thing in. It's been almost 3 hours.
Good night.
Hey, thanks for being the last caller.
Thank you for having me on again.
You got it. Take care. All right. Man, there are people tuning in on YouTube at all moments that are just looking at me, sit here, stare at the screen. And people say, I see people commenting, "What is he reading?" You think I'm live streaming like me reading? No, I'm taking calls, guys. And if you would hop over to the Zoom side of things, as discussed in the wrap-up of most shows, or pretty much everywhere I can, maybe 30 times tonight, the calls are on Zoom. YouTube will not let me connect these things, but it's working great as a feeder because people understand what's going on. Some do, and then they hop over. We got way more people involved tonight. Definitely. And in the downtime, I can always look at the YouTube chat and comment on this or that. So I'm going to do it this way again. It's unfortunate that people listening to this later are going to hear me repeatedly say that, but it's how we keep the show fed with new people. I think that maybe you might understand if you've listened to previous episodes than this one. I feel like we got through more people. Clearly, we went to almost 3 hours. It's been a lot of fun, actually, but I definitely have to get going on this show because what we all love the most outside of these sweet, sweet joint sessions is the show that I produce. And so for me to be able to do a good job, I've got to go and make sure that I'm not slacking when I'm ready for this. I'm 80% ready, but I think that people probably realize I over prepare. I mean, I write probably 5 typed pages for every show, and I have a list of questions that could probably cover 2 or 3 episodes. And I sometimes, if they're going a certain direction, I'll pivot this way, pivot that way. But it's a very over-prepared thing. I've got a process that, despite my laziness and my nature to be lazy and many other areas of life, when it comes to this show, I'm so thankful for its success that I have been very disciplined in staying with specifically this way of doing things, maybe almost to a fault. But I've just seen a lot of shows that I like get successful, and then they change the entire way the show is done. And so I hope it doesn't seem like I'm too rigid in format, but I definitely have tried to stay true to what made it successful rather than getting successful and then changing into something else. So long story short, I'm hammered. It's been a while. It's been fun. But I've got to go read this book because I got to be ready for Rob Brown. I got to give Rob Brown the best showing I can because he deserves it, as does every THC guest. So thanks for tuning in tonight. I really shouldn't schedule interviews for the day after a joint session, but this particular month, I'm not going to do it on 420. You know, I got personal things to do on 420, and then 425 is the day I set it up. So it is what it is. But you will know that when you hear Toxic Home, Conscious Home recorded, that this is what I did the night before. And that's a little insight that you and I can share. Thanks for being here. Again, the joint sessions, it's a fun thing to do. Anyone can tune in. Anyone can call. No matter if you're a Plus member or not, but I archive it for Plus members. And that's a thing I do to say thank you to them for all the support and allowing me to do this as a job. It's the best job in the world. So thank you, and thanks for listening. All the callers were great, and they said a lot of kind things. Take care.